The story kicks off on a ruined battlefield, with skulls and debris scattered across the freezing snow. Suddenly, the battle scene is torn apart by a violent blast of dark energy. Right at that moment, lightning bolts slash through the dark sky, revealing a massive army ready to brawl. The fighters charge fiercely without hesitation, screaming attack commands against the rival troops. A gold-armored leader commands the charge to annihilate Road, calling him a monster due to the use of forbidden spells. Amidst the gloomy lightning, a giant winged creature appears the moment the target confirms his name is Road. He listens to all his opponents relentlessly repeat the word monster. Showing off his true power, the skeletal dragon rises, spreading total dread across the battlefield. Road perfectly understands the reason for this nickname, fully aware he is considered a freak for a clear reason. The reason is his transformation into the only being with the ability to dominate the realm of the fallen. As the greatest necromancer in that universe, his mere existence already means the end for a lot of people. With that, a gigantic troop of undead advances under his orders, wiping out the enemy forces without mercy. The skeletons march endlessly, showing that no one is capable of stopping that army of darkness. In total despair, the adversaries scream at the top of their lungs, begging for someone to stop him for good before it is too late. Gathering their last bits of energy, light mages fire powerful divine spells, declaring there is no room for that forbidden power in the world. A storm of flaming meteors crashes down toward the Necromancer to finish the fight. Without showing an ounce of fear, Road chooses to use his most enigmatic forbidden spell against the arrogant mages. Next, a giant pillar of light consumes him entirely, erasing everything around him in the blink of an eye. Slowly, Road's blurry vision focuses on a young woman, repeatedly calling him young master. Completely disoriented, he identifies the face of Lei, his former personal maid. The young woman politely lets him know that it is already time for breakfast. Staring at his own reflection in the bedroom mirror, the guy is baffled to notice his teenage appearance. He immediately realizes that, in some unexplainable way, he has returned 20 years into the past. Road remembers that, in his previous life, he had been taken to another world while taking his last breaths at 32 years of age. In that fantasy universe, he mastered dark magic and commanded an invincible troop of the undead. Despite being the world's greatest calamity, some naive folks still believed they could team up to take him down. Interrupting the boy's thoughts, Lee asks him to hurry up so he doesn't get harshly punished by the patriarch. Keeping an impressively calm posture, Road apologizes for the delay and tells her to lead the way. The maid freezes, finding it super weird that the cowardly young master is suddenly being so polite. Walking down the luxurious hallways, the MC remembers that he is now the youngest son of Baron Morris, known around the area as a spoiled good-for-nothing. In his past incarnation, his entire family was tragically ruined, while he just watched without being able to do absolutely anything. However, noticing that his magical knowledge remains intact, Road swears that this time he will change his destiny with his own hands. Arriving at the huge dining room, he finds his relatives gathered in silence to eat. Right off the bat, Baron Shiro Morris scolds his son for being late and asks if he is trying to skip his lessons again. Without losing his cool, the MC apologizes and assures him he has zero intention of skipping. The polite and direct answer leaves his dad amazed, as he hadn't seen the kid act this serious in years. Staying quiet, Road reflects on how his family was brought to ruins in the past and decides to uncover the whole truth. Taking advantage of the moment, the older brother named Leo taunts the guy, saying a lazy bum will never take the lead of the house. Sif, the sister, quickly steps into the argument and asks Leo not to be so hard on their little brother. Showing affection, the girl gives Road a piece of meat, and he feels relieved seeing that she is still kind. The mood gets heavy when he remembers that, in the past, Sif was forced into a political marriage to try and save the family from disgrace. The young woman ended up being sacrificed to the enemies by a fiend, a terrible fate that Road promises to avoid at all costs. Heavy footsteps echo through the room, drawing the attention of everyone at the table. The matriarch, Lady Della Morris, makes a majestic entrance into the hall and immediately points out the kid's new delay with disdain. Trying to defend her brother, Sif quickly takes the blame, lying that they lost track of time because they were studying magic the night before. Completely out of patience, Lady Della tells Sif to stop making fake excuses to protect a parasite. The woman lays down the rules and warns that if Road doesn't master magic in just 1 week, he will be kicked out of the family without a second thought. Worried about the absurd deadline, the sister tries to argue that the time frame is way too short for any beginner. Using a threatening tone, Della reminds them that even the genius Leo took 1 month and asks if Sif also wants to be thrown out on the streets. The young woman steps back in fear, but Rode leaves everyone baffled by calmly accepting the challenge. Shocked by the quick acceptance, Sif asks if her brother has completely lost his mind, agreeing to something impossible. Looking firmly at the matriarch, the MC decisively questions what his reward will be if he wins the bet. The woman answers with extreme disdain that, if by some miracle he succeeds, she will grant any request. The guy quickly demands exclusive access to enter the sacred hero's tomb as soon as he proves his worth. The kid's massive audacity makes his dad raise an eyebrow, visibly curious about the drastic change in behavior. The Baron speaks up and agrees to the pact, promising entry to the heritage site if the magic is mastered within the set time. Della just mocks the whole thing, suggesting the young master should start packing his bags to leave the estate. Outside the mansion, Sif runs after her brother, not understanding the reason for so much stubbornness and provocation. She explains that a simple apology would solve the problem, insisting that learning everything in 7 days is pure madness. Grabbing him by the arm, the sister reveals she saved money for him to live well in case he really gets kicked out, proving her pure loyalty. Rode is touched by his sister's constant care, noticing how much she truly cares about his well-being. Mentally, he confesses that if he hadn't reincarnated with his supreme memories, he would also think it was impossible to win the bet. Determined to change the course of things fast, the guy walks away from the castle ready to start his grand project. Walking toward the forest, he recalls that a perfect legend rests in the hero's tomb to build his army. But for now, he knows he will have to make do with the carcass of a boss monster that lives near the family's lands. Reaching the exact spot, Rode finds the massive remains of a formidable beast tangled in the thick vegetation. Analyzing his own body, he realizes his current state is incredibly weak, having only the limitations of a mere magic apprentice. In that world, a mage's strength is divided into several strict categories, ranging from beginner all the way to the legendary and unattainable rank. However, before turning back time, the MC had already surpassed even the legends, becoming an absolute and unmatched force. Even though his current mana only lets him summon 1 minion, his past status as Monarch of the Fallen remains fully active within him. Reaching out his hand to the rotting carcass, the guy orders his new minion to rise from its eternal rest immediately. A bluish spirit flame begins to burn intensely as the command demands the creature's total obedience. Reacting to the necromancy spell, the giant bones start to rise, breaking the forest ground effortlessly. Dark energy covers the entire monster carcass, connecting every shattered piece through an ancient and terrifying magic. With a deafening roar, the boss monster is revived as a gigantic undead, ready to annihilate any target for its leader. The massive bone creature walks slowly toward Rode through the freezing forest mist. Watching the beast approach, the guy whispers to himself while evaluating the new magical connection. Right after, the monster bows its imposing body and addresses the MC as master with absolute submission. The young man's eyes gleam with dark energy as he verifies that the ancient spell worked flawlessly. He assesses the newly awakened beast's skills, noticing it holds devastating fire and earth spells. Being a master necromancer, Rode knows he can borrow spells from his summons up to a certain limit. With that, he reaches out his hand and starts absorbing the pure energy radiating from the monster straight into his own body. A strong blue magic whirlwind forms in the air as the power transfer takes place. The creature praises the master's grandeur, who seems quite pleased with the primary result of this absorption. But he admits his current state is still too fragile, which restricts the summons to just 1 servant for now. Still, he clenches his fists full of confidence, knowing this power is already enough to silence his strict mother. In his thoughts, the young man recalls the legends of the sacred hero's tomb, a place built long before the kingdom itself existed. Local tales say that if a genius catches the attention of the warrior spirits there, they will receive a priceless blessing. Heading back to the mansion, he remembers that his older brother earned that honor in the past, which justifies his mother's favoritism. However, being a user of forbidden arts, Rode decides he isn't going there to beg for blessings, but to wake up the entity sleeping in the depths. Sneaking into the estate, the guy is caught off guard by Sif, who pulls his ear, scolding him for disappearing. The young woman asks her brother to hide for a few days, promising to take the blame and convince the matriarch to lift the punishment. Rubbing his sore ear, Rode assures her with a carefree smile that nobody is going to send him away from there. The sudden affectionate behavior leaves his sister paralyzed, not knowing exactly how to react. At that moment, the maid Lee runs down the stairs to warn them that the important magic class is about to start. The young master accepts the call eagerly, following the employee into the mansion at a calm pace. Watching him walk away so peacefully, Sif still doubts a miracle and considers begging for mercy on her knees to the matriarch. Inside the grand library, the vibe among the young aristocrats is pure mockery and gossip. Baron Anta's youngest son immediately starts making fun of Rode, joking that he finally showed up close to being expelled. The other students join the cruel joke, filling the room with loud laughs and looks of contempt. Ignoring the childish mess, Professor Rigu simply asks the boy to get to his seat quickly so as not to delay the class. While walking down the aisle, the MC remembers how he used to be humiliated at this stage for having zero magical skills. Defying everyone's expectations, he greets the professor very politely and offers a sincere apology for being late. The experienced instructor is amazed by the courtesy of the house's most problematic student, finding the scene very weird. Completely ignoring the whispers, the kid simply sits at the back of the room ready to listen to the man. The obnoxious classmate turns his face in annoyance and mutters quietly, labeling Rhodes' attitude as pure fakeness. Taking back control of the class, the old instructor goes back to explaining the hidden life force called mana. He explains that by honing this gift, a sorcerer can follow fantastic paths like a healer, magic swordsman, or shadow stalker. The progression happens through difficult levels, going all the way from a clumsy rookie to reaching the glorious rank of Holy Archmage. Curious about the incredible stories, a girl raises her hand and asks if the legendary rank is actually real. Looking nostalgically at the ceiling, the professor confirms that these entities are living legends whose actions change the country's history. He laments that there are barely any grandmasters walking around, pointing out that the kingdom hasn't had a legendary mage in hundreds of years. Therefore, he advises the youth to keep their feet on the ground and focus on mastering their own mana before having such high ambitions. Taking advantage of the topic, the troublemaker kid points at Rode, flashing a very sadistic smile. With an obvious mocking tone, he highlights to everyone that the useless guy has been attending lessons for 3 years and still hasn't learned a thing. Keeping a cold posture, the young master replies that this is nobody's business and warns that he will learn everything in 7 days. The absurd statement makes the spoiled noble burst into laughter, considering the promise the biggest joke of the century. The other students jump on the bandwagon and laugh together, agreeing the guy is still as arrogant as ever. Watching the mess from afar, the professor lets out a long sigh, believing the boy hasn't changed one bit. With his head resting on his hand, Rode thinks he would love to show off right now, but casting lethal spells in the middle of the room would only cause a headache. Later that night, Sif goes to the main chambers hoping to get one last chance to protect her brother. Sipping her tea very peacefully, Lady Della coldly questions what her daughter wants at such a late hour. Being direct, the young woman clenches her trembling hands and tearfully begs her mother not to send the boy away from home. Annoyed by the annoying persistence, the matriarch slams the porcelain on the table and asks why there is so much loyalty for a burden. She throws it in the girl's face that the family needs to feel pride, recalling that the genius Leo was already controlling spells at 9 years of age. Displaying pure disgust, the woman says Rode is already 12 years old and is only good for wasting money on useless things. Pointing her finger aggressively, Della warns that the decision is made and tells her daughter to swallow her tears. The girl lowers her head, completely devastated by the cruelty of the moment. Staring into the void, Sif agonizingly wonders what will be left of them when the disaster is unavoidable. 7 days fly by on the calendar until the morning of the big test gathers all the aristocracy in the mansion's garden. Watching the spectacle from the balcony, the matriarch declares the relatives are only there to laugh at the youngest's despair. Standing near her wicked mother, Sif swallows hard hearing the guests bet on yet another historical embarrassment for the Morizes. Even surrounded by negative energy, the sister risks asking in a low voice what would happen if he pulled off a genuine miracle. Down below in the gardens, young Anta flashes a devilish smile, counting the seconds to see his rival biting the dust. Trying to guarantee his own show, the annoying kid yells out, offering to teach the useless guy how to cast a real spell. Gathering immense heat in the palm of his hand, the smug rival creates a fire spell and declares what his specialty is. The flaming attack swiftly cuts through the garden space, heading toward a stone pillar. The strike hits the target with full force, causing a loud explosion that impresses the small group of nobles. Proud of the basic display, the kid turns with a wicked smile and challenges Rode to show the result of his supposedly hard training. Showing no fear at all in the face of the ridiculous spectacle, the MC just walks forward slowly with firm steps. Surrounded by an overwhelming pressure that no one notices, he feels his blood boil, knowing it is his turn to shine. Reaching the spell mark, the guy casually extends his right arm toward the huge pillar. Watching the scene, the unbearable noble bursts into uncontrollable laughter again, claiming the loser will start crying any second. Up on the elegant balconies, the women laugh venomously, placing high bets that the boy will have his bags packed before lunchtime. With a serious face, Della agrees that a good-for-nothing won't be missed and truly needs to disappear from their lives. Ignoring the opposition, Rode taps into the volcanic powers he took from his hidden minion in his mind. A demonic shadow made of flames and bones looms massive behind him, letting out a silent roar of strength. With his eyes glowing in a scary blue shade, the guy decides not to play around and unleashes all his bottled-up calamity at once. The troublemaker's smile vanishes instantly, replaced by a cold sweat of total panic in the face of the unimaginable. With devastating violence, a sea of blue flames erases the pillar from existence, leaving everyone present completely breathless. The brutal impact of the magic reduces the heavy stone structure to dust, proving the absolute destructive power of the strike. Totally freaked out by the scene, Sif can barely believe it and screams her brother's name in a state of shock. The crowd of nobles goes into a frenzy, whispering that it is not possible and that he actually pulled it off. Assessing the damage, Instructor Rigu notes that no ordinary rookie would have the skill to control so much energy at once. Young Anta goes into total panic, unable to understand how the loser launched a power infinitely greater than his. Soon, a lady nudges the matriarch, ironically saying the supposed loser doesn't seem so useless after all. Jumping with euphoria on the balcony, the sister tries to make her mother look at the youngest boy's unpredictable triumph. Not caring about the shouting around him, the MC just adjusts his clothes with an unusual coldness. The girl keeps cheering from the palace window, relieved to see the whole plan was a huge success. However, the arrogant noble recovers from the shock and starts yelling exhaustively, demanding answers about that unexpected strike. Outraged, he points his finger and accuses Rode of cheating, claiming a truant would never do something on that level. Whispers spread across the courtyard, and the gossips fully agree with the cheating theory. Pointing right in the boy's face, the rival calls him a coward and accuses him of stealing an item from the vault just to escape punishment. With a serious face and a dangerous glare, the young master asks what exactly the kid is implying with that. Full of pride, Anta argues that magical tools drain too much mana, betting he won't be able to do it a second time. Wanting a master to validate the insults, the MC asks Rigu what he thinks about the false suspicion. The old master apologizes for the ugly moment, but gives in, stating the boy's accusation isn't entirely wrong. With that agreement, the guests loudly doubt among themselves if the massive power wasn't just a nicely staged act. High up in the house, Sif's chest gets crushed with sadness, believing the boy rejected her coins and resorted to stealing instead. Horror paralyses the girl when she realizes that stealing will ruin the family's image way more than academic incompetence. Motivated to shield her younger blood at all costs, she realizes she needs to step in fast before the worst happens. Agonized, Sif rushes down the stairs and hits the lawn, screaming and begging them not to punish her brother. Wanting to draw the blame of the heavy violation onto herself, she tricks the crowd saying she took the forbidden item. Without giving her time to finish the silly excuse, the guy grabs her arm tightly, cutting off her words. Keeping a firm attitude, he scolds the young woman to step back and let him handle the whole mess that started. Turning his eyes back to Rigu, Rode dictates that duplicating the explosion will kill the proof of illegal cheating. Rigu quickly agrees, saying that reproducing the skill would invalidate any talk of criminal forgery. Seeing the situation as reasonable, the controller of the Fallen starts pouring out a brutal force, making his presence felt across the whole yard. The insane gravity makes the preppy enemy walk backwards with chills, realizing the uncontrollable disaster suddenly awakened. Cold in his heart, Rode shatters the ground, unleashing a new colossal blast, with scenery-crushing energy way worse than the first spell's sent. Swallowing dust, the spoiled kid's eyes freeze, fully knowing there was no lying invention behind that. Riding the free momentum, the boy pulls raw energy, pushing a concentrated explosion aimed right at Anta's target face. The rich wimp freezes in absolute terror, witnessing the volcanic heat singeing gaps in his thin hair. A terrifying bomb cracks bricks and walls in the scenery, forming thick and dark clouds of war debris across the entire area. Completely humbled in the mud by the disparity, Anta breaks down shivering, locked in his bones without the ability to pull a single faint whisper. The local authorities fall into a perplexed silence, unable to process the revelation of extreme force coming from the beast they called trash. Turning attention back to the witch mother, the young lady happily asks to cancel her brother's banishment to the punitive exile forests, previously announced with rage in the cruel eyes of the insensitive matriarch of the big fancy tables. Chewing on heavy annoyances, the woman issues a provisional pardon, emphasizing that she doesn't shelter lazy bums slacking off in the immense rich premises of the castles. Straightening his messy collar, Ragu brings loud order to the confusion, exclaiming in a very high tone the honorable approval of the young man's natural talent, debunking the malicious fake hypotheses. The end of the daylight swallows the tiles of House Morris, crowning the exhausted conclusion of a long shift full of severe pressures on the heads of the gathered elites, witnessing terrifying scenes. Below the noble walls, warm clapping erupts from the sister, while the silent attention rests on the mature and serious face of the eldest Morris boy in his usual analytical darkness. Rode returns a polite compliment to Leo, indirectly hinting at the endless gossips narrated by Sif covering all the silence of the mansion from the immense victories witnessed in the newly destroyed arena in a memorable, absurd moment. With everyone seated for the night banquet, Rode tires them out with tall tales, pulling absolute focus to the delicious grub on the ready tablecloths waiting for the starving nobles in the plush armchairs ready for the long wait of the day and punctual hungry time of the house. Leaving jaws dropped, the Baron claps beautifully, praising victories to the very expensive crowd and sealing eternal compliments in the writings and glories of great monumental success for the honorable image upheld by the clean, shining backs of the patriarchs of the armed shields of glories before all the local people without any shame to deal with. Holding back superficial emotions in the promises, Rode smartly turns the cannon to cash in and secure the agreed-upon prizes of the immortal glories spoken before. Nodding positively at the old solemn vows, the Lord gives the green light, confirming fortunes torn in the valuable magic golden entrance here and there of the ancient kingdoms. Severe enough to break rocks, the old lady demands powerful blessings, justifying the capital poured through the glorified doors of the ancient family honors of the heavy fame, inherited the hard way in the old past kingdoms of deceased and prosperous ancient kings, who ruled everything far away in the celestial meadows present there in sight. She slams her fists demanding identical complete resources to bankroll identical extremely strong training sessions of the overwhelming possessions of wealthy treasures full of the heaviest resources. In the short curve of required etiquette, Rode bows his forehead, expressing fake and highly educated thank yous to the immense and pompous face of the bearded boss master leader big shot of the cloaks and powers in those territories dominated by their fierce claws from the top of the flawless kingdoms in the commanded armies. But in his dark heart, the blessing becomes junk because the bones and lost spirits will make and forge him as the majestic and indestructible emperor of the immense dungeons of dark, lost kingdoms full of cursed glories, for the clueless ignorant living mortals standing there foolishly near the clean snobby ignorant naive overly pure gardens of the Royal Academy. Aware of his arcane photographic memory, he seeks epic warriors of the early days trapped in the desolate confines of forgotten ditches and immemorial obscure dumps in the hollow vastness of other people's ignorance, without deceptive sacred glows for foolish amateur dumb pathetic souls there, and from that limitless ignorance of the kings who live bragging for nothing and weakly in the castle of the Royal Academy. The cold, bright blue iris locks and promises to bring funereal glory to the pact of the spirits, turning the prey into monstrous summons in the giant battles that will crush the entire opposition, laughing at the easy foolish arrogance of others who live mocking and cannot foresee the imminent and devastating unparalleled arrival of the brutal end of royalty, and the incalculable central power of the supreme untamable superior cursed forces without equal. Alone in the locks and luxury of the room, Rode sighs at the scarce spells, whining in his distant soul, aware of his weak mana with no strength to support absurd weights of the long infernal errand in the giant cursed portals. However, hunting for heavy egalitarian benefits, he visualizes massive jumps on the coveted scale of grand magical power leaps, fully aware of the massive upgrades. 1 month runs out on the calendar in drops of sweat and blood until the doorknobs of the maids knock, announcing royal call orders to the master boss of the mansion, who whistles and sets the general pace of the houses full of the powerful influential lords and gigantic incredibly powerful aristocratic lords from there. Happy to see the big hour arrive, he evaluates his arcane status at the intermediate rookie level, aware of the generous upgrade during study hours. In the wide halls of the solemn family gatherings, he announces the mythical opening, sending Leo, the leader model boy, to guide noble trails. Always ready, he takes blind orders, not questioning chats and dictated commands from the owning lords and big shot bosses of the barons watching over the whole bunch of easy, naive, noble apprentices, who don't have the strength alone to hurt a simple fly without the cash of the huge influential house at the top and luxurious high end of a giant prosperous local kingdom in the rich, fancy green coastal area there. Up close and quick on the wheels, the coachman hit the road for real, clearing trails in the woods, past the rich and gigantic noble terrain of the Lord Father's huge big money farm present there. In the long bumps of the transport, Leo drops hints on knowledge to test the brat on the colors of the orders. Without acting like a smart-aleck nerd, he asks for clarity on the manual so details can flow clean. The guide breaks it down into 5 colors going up from white trash to the red legend level in the haunted hierarchies. Curious, Rode sinks his teeth in, wanting to know the glory carved by the beloved little brother's fame. Laughing softly, the kid reveals he didn't catch any epic glories, coming back only with purple medals in the meager forces. The little one is stunned, confirming the monstrous degree demanded to forge legendary heroic kings there in the giant thrones of legends and abyssal kingdoms of war and kingdoms of holy divine fire, and light full of huge wonderful virtues. Sif cuts the chat, talking up the luxury of the big genius, and saying the sacred miracle is only to come, not with empty clean-tied hands for the clan. Laying it on thick to reap the sacred fruits, forbidding total emptiness for the return to the chic gold-filled halls of royal luxury. Trying not to fall for the laughs of lies, he thinks he'd get beat up badly if he snitched about a cold grave regarding the reasons for the dark, deadly nearby journeys without light or heroes in the crypts. The brakes pull hard, locking the car at the massive huge guards in the big solid stone, macabre sentry boxes and fortresses. A dense vibe breathes antiquity there from the revered sanctified cemeteries full of strong souls with no immortal rest in the historical places, of the ancient holy historical wonders in their immense country right there, and also in the grand wonder of the planet there. Steam and a dense climate protect entrances to push away laymen and common dead-weight civilians in the relic courtyards there. Wishing for divine protection, Leo announces a hard countdown in the 180 minutes of long and delayed waiting there under the arches of the Great Guards. Sif promises happy fireworks, dropping festive lights, winning a white trash prize in the glories of the boy there, who just seeks forgotten bones in the lost tombs of dust. Squeezing fabrics too tensely with pale hands, she can't stop the shivers, imagining horrific outcomes in the real bets of the final supreme test of the boys from the classes and nobility gathered there, happy laughing at the parties. Ignoring the sad talk, the supreme monarch steps forward, walking raw on tombstones, thirsty for bones to bend and forge his infinite power in his mortal hidden kingdom of the glories of the plagues created there with his always strong and huge blue magic that blinds other people's eyes before everyone from time to time in sporadic hours. Walking through the dark slates, Road vibrates internally, crossing the traced route to the domains. He recalls valuable tips from brother Leo indicating rich living decorations in the fortunes of the graves, and greed to fortify the rare high and dense divine level there of the millennial abandoned magic place left there for many centuries in their great history. And told for whole years, a bunch in the dirty little bars full of drunks from the nearby towns, laughing at random nonsense in the distant humble rural and calm villages nearby, without stress or legends bigger than scary silly fake and non-existent mystical legends. With the knowing brother's blessing, the master discards and sniffs on instinct, following the wreckage of fallen eras. Past memories play a secret trump card, affirming a pure and hard hero in a pauper's grave of the fallen plagues at the very bottom of all the rest of the ancient stones. Stalling his face on the smooth rock, he begs for permits guaranteeing peaceful friendship and no serious disrespect to the fallen kings buried in that dirty ground around the graves and dry dirt there. At this pace and time, heavy dark dense mana starts to flow to kick off the ceremonial chants there in the shadows of the graves. In a thunderous yell, he demands absolute kneeling, pulling interrupted rest to the ancestral and legendary creature to the royal courtyard. Massive power rebound spells forcing an annoyed pushback from the Witch King, facing the insolence in his shredded soul. Cutting off revolts, he dictates the orders of an absolute leader in the reign of the fallen, silencing the rebelled inferior scum. Crushing egos, he materializes a flaming blue night monster in the immense, dangerous presence of the brutal armed shadows full and plenty there. Facing the legend beast, Road roars dryly, commanding it to drop to its knees on the ground right there. Without resisting, it crushes orders, paying and rendering immediate obedient and longing servitude without complaining and happily complying. Probing the summoned one, he asks for identities, knowing if they remember ancient fallen titles. The soldier's ghost mutters blackouts, charging a lord a registry to be called in the new imperative voice to serve him strongly. Full of happiness, he lets out enthusiasm naming him, with the exact name thought of beforehand in the real joy back at his family's place, and all the training beforehand. He registers him with the title of Bladeseat stamping on his chest, the flames of the firm cursed alliance of servants, supreme lords, owners, kings, mage kings, bosses, and loyal fallen easy lackeys, to serve the witch warriors whenever needed at the time of the beatdowns nearby in the brutal squares in the fancy and beautiful rich city in the imperious royal high nobility there. Suddenly, a loud noise drags quiet figures from the fogs, startling the pace of the cold souls of the cemeteries around the yard and surroundings of the dark sculptures, statues, and sepulchres of the deep ends of the dark, ugly, sad, ugly, dark, scary, ancient, big, dark, millennial, and gloomy, forbidden, mystical local place of the grand, dangerous, fancy, grand, rich, imperial, powerful academy, in the large territory of the spacious, open, free rural area, neighboring the meadows and nearby villages of the powerful local kings and kingdom residents and the like from there. A bit further away, Ignea assures his granddaughter Elinor that she will certainly obtain a powerful blessing. Accompanying the duo, the guard Leon advises them to look for the larger tombs, as they would belong to figures of great historical influence. Full of confidence, the young woman agrees and picks up the pace to explore the sacred territory. She quickly stops, fascinated, in front of the majestic statue adorning the tomb of the famous hero Ills. Enchanted, Elinor remembers that this warrior was a grandmaster who came very close to reaching the rank of sage. Excited about the find, the noble runs toward the statue without a second thought. Suddenly, a dark energy detonation cuts the ground right in her path. The guard rushes forward, yelling for the girl to be careful with the lethal energy emanating from the undead. Emerging from the darkness, the formidable spirit summoned by Road blocks the way wrapped in its blue flames. Watching the scene from afar, Ignea notices the young necromancer's presence and guesses he is also after a blessing. With his sword in hand, Leon yells to find out if all that terrifying magic was coming from the boy. Assessing the kid's stance, the warrior notices he just looks like a rookie swordsman but radiates a deadly aura. Alarmed by the scene, the patriarch concludes that the boy was possessed by some resentful soul from that grave. Staying unfazed in the middle of the confusion, the MC doesn't even blink at the armed intimidation. With an ironic tone, he tells his spiritual servant that those people are labeling him a vengeful spirit. Crouching down calmly, the young master picks up a random tree branch lying on the ground. After checking the balance of the piece of wood, Road hands over the control of the situation to his summoned skills. Wasting no time, the guard attacks furiously, landing a heavy strike to try and take the boy down. However, the fragile branch manages to block the steel blade in the blink of an eye. The boom of the impact echoes through the cemetery, while the MC repels the attack with extreme disdain and zero effort. Seizing the perfect opening, Road returns the strike, launching the grown man far away. Absolutely stunned, Leon feels the absurd and unexplainable force of the hit, going into total panic. Hidden under the hood, the necromancer's eyes gleam, reflecting the millennial martial expertise now running through his veins. Fallen on the ground, the guard despairs over being defeated by a child armed with a simple twig. Amazed by the situation, Elinor freezes, realizing that this prodigious talent is roughly the same age as her. In an attempt to keep up appearances, the young woman points her finger arrogantly and asks if the guy knows they belong to the Ashblade family. Immediately scolding his granddaughter, the old noble strictly orders her to shut up. Surprised by the unexpected scolding, the young woman steps back without understanding the reason for her grandfather's immense caution. In complete silence, the MC remains motionless, as if the clash hadn't mattered at all. The experienced patriarch analyzes the context and notes that not even he would be able to take down the guard that easily. Catching his breath, Leon apologizes to the Lord and begs for one more chance to face the boy. Advancing with blind fury, the warrior fires a slashing attack infused with all his lightning magic. The violent clash of powers makes the ground vibrate around the ancient graves. With terrifying fluidity, the young master deflects the magic sword using only the thin branch once again. Releasing the overwhelming aura of his legendary knight, Road points the twig right at the opponent's face. Completely subjugated, the guard freezes in terror, hearing the guy say he will bury him right there if he tries to attack again. The experienced noble goes into shock, realizing the boy one relying exclusively on sword techniques, without spending any mana. Desperate to avoid the worst, Ignea runs to the front line pleading for mercy. With his head bowed, the elderly man apologizes for his subordinate's extremely rash behavior. Cold and observant, Road immediately figures out the old man only allowed the attack to measure the limits of his strength. Turning around annoyed, Elinor's grandfather yells, ordering Leon to come apologize for the offense right away. Extremely embarrassed, the subordinate bows, asking the young master to overlook his mistake. Sweating cold, the guard admits to himself he has never felt so much dread facing someone using such basic moves. Tossing the branch away without ceremony, the MC lets them know it's fine, seeing as nobody got seriously hurt. The patriarch admits they were blind and foolish not to notice they were facing a true sword veteran. Watching the interaction, Elinor is shocked to see her powerful grandfather treat a young boy with so much respect. To avoid drawing more stares, Rode shrugs and claims he just got really lucky during the clash. The elderly noble laughs out loud, praising the mysterious guy's immense modesty. Taking advantage of the lighter mood, he formally introduces himself as the leader of House Ashblade and introduces his granddaughter. Bowing very politely, Elinor offers a sincere apology for acting so rudely a few minutes ago. Curious about the prodigy's background, Ignia asks which influential family or court the boy belongs to. Very directly, the guy reveals only his name and assures them he doesn't belong to any faction. This info makes the old man's eyes sparkle, already calculating the profit the family would get by recruiting such talent. Trying to strike up a conversation, the young noble shyly asks if the master also came to get a heroic blessing there. Visibly embarrassed, Elinor fumbles her words, questioning how someone so genius still doesn't have a guardian spirit. Before the interaction goes any further, the patriarch suddenly collapses and starts coughing heavily and non-stop. Terrified, the granddaughter and the guard run to hold the elderly man, who loses his strength suddenly with no explanation. Evaluating the scene with a clinical eye, Rode instantly realizes the old man was hit by a curse cast by a hidden evil entity. Desperate, Leon asks if the guy can diagnose the problem, admitting that several influential healers have already failed at this same task. Holding her weak grandfather, Elinor explains he was ambushed by fiends in the past and there is no cure, while the old man mutters he's fine. With this data, Rode understands the full context, confirming it is a very rare evil spirit curse, curable by only a few mages. Overcome with emotion, the young woman looks at the guy with pure hope, thinking he knows the cure for that ailment. Right then, the patriarch has another violent coughing fit, proving just how much the demonic magic keeps destroying him from the inside. Shaken by despair, Elinor begs for her grandfather's life and swears House Ashblade will do anything to save him. Thinking about the Lord's past, the Necromancer recognizes him as an admirable hero and knows undoing the spell will be easy using his forbidden skills. Always keeping a cold posture, the MC calmly tells the worried family that curing the patriarch isn't a hard task. The guard and the young woman are shocked and extremely relieved, asking almost at the same time if the mysterious master is being serious. Hidden under the hood, Rode confirms the cure is possible, but warns he'll need some specific materials to cleanse the bad energy. Full of relief, Elinor celebrates the great news that her grandfather's problem finally has a real solution. Acting fast, Leon hands a magical communication item to the young master, asking him to call whenever he needs anything for the ritual. The warrior also promises to pick Rode up personally when everything is set, leaving the family at his disposal. Pleased with the alliance and the new resources, the guy simply agrees with the plan without showing much excitement. While leaving the cemetery mist behind, the MC concludes the effort was worth it, because the pact with the new spirit boosted his strength. Heading back to the gates, the MC reflects that the spirit's power has decayed a lot over time but swears to restore it soon. Spotting her little brother emerging from the mist, Sif screams his name with great excitement. The girl runs to him, instantly asking which hero chose him and wanting to know how rare the blessing is. Rode despairs internally for forgetting this detail, knowing he can't expose the summoning of a legendary spirit. Ruining the happy mood, Leo walks up with their dad and points out directly that he can't sense any holy light on the youngest kid. The Baron glares at his son wanting explanations, remembering the fortune wasted to secure that spot. The patriarch rubs his face in frustration, regretting having believed the boy changed, stating he is the same disappointment as always. Lying, the mage says he wasn't approved by the heroes, although he knows the divine blessing would be useless for his dark magic. Shaken by the failure, the sister suggests they head back to the mansion, praying their mother doesn't throw a fit of rage. At night, angry screams echo through the halls of the massive House Morris. Lady Della slams the table, humiliating the boy in every way for the disgrace at the sacred site. She throws the family's wasted gold in his face, while the guy lowers his head, preferring to take the scolding quietly. The woman claims any basic effort would yield something, deciding to punish him by sending him to the Magic Academy in a few days. Turning her back in pure disgust, the matriarch orders him to stay away from the house, complaining he ruined her dinner. Rode thinks studying there is an insult to his knowledge, but accepts it, aiming for the chance to find rare items. Before the boy leaves the room, his mother reminds him that the noble from House Flora studies there and demands he gets along with her. Evaluating the order, Rode remembers the girl was his ex-fiancée who broke up with him for being weak and ended up perishing in an arranged marriage in the past. He recalls the young woman's terrible temper and guesses his mother just wants him to be a diplomatic lackey to please the ally. However, he brushes that off and promises to reverse the girl's tragic future to repay the kindness her mother showed in his past life. 3 days go by until the Grand Magic Academy is introduced, an important school founded by 7 powerful cities. At the entrance gates, the MC looks at the fancy place full of elite youth and the most influential families in the kingdom. With a stubborn look, Rode believes being away from home will make it easier to rapidly recover his old monstrous power. In the middle of the crowd, the students start whispering in fascination when the famous heiress of House Flora makes her entrance into the courtyard. Several boys sigh, charmed by her beauty, lamenting with pure envy the fact that she has a secret engagement. Not caring about the gossip, the MC just waits in a quiet corner of the schoolyard until the mess passes. Meanwhile, House Flora's butler informs the young woman that the Morris matriarch sent the youngest son to accompany her during the school term. With a disgusted face, the girl spots Rode from afar and asks why she has to put up with the useless kid from a family that is falling in the kingdom. The guard explains it was a demand from her family, highlighting that his older brother's potential makes up for the diplomatic deal. Bothered by the politics, the noble agrees to keep the trash around, thinking he might serve as a meat shield for future problems. Assessing everything from a distance, the guy recognizes the girl still has the same unbearable temper as back in the day. Completely amazed, Elinor crosses paths with the guy in the courtyard and comments in awe about his presence at the prestigious Magic Academy. The young woman quickly assumes the master must be on a super-secret mission, thinking he came to investigate families allied with fiends. Fast, Rode tells her to lower her voice and forbids her from calling him that in public, a rule the girl complies with immediately. Intrigued, she asks what to call him and is instructed to just use his name while he asks about her grandfather's health. Elinor lets him know the old man hasn't had any changes, but guarantees the requested materials are almost ready, which makes the Necromancer happy. Right then, the heiress of House Flora calls the boy's attention from afar, impatiently complaining about him taking so long. Without causing a fuss, the MC politely says goodbye to his ally and lets her know he's on his way. Seeing the guy walk away, Elinor glares at Claire with revulsion, totally furious at the rude way she treated her lord. Near the girl, Rode puts up with her insults, listening to jokes about how he is too weak to act as a bodyguard. In the middle of the chat, a student in the background finds the situation weird and asks how nobody dares to stand near the noble. His buddy explains that the one near them is Anderson, Lord Rune's heir, pointing out he hates seeing anyone with her. Noticing the young woman's presence, the troublemaker noble approaches full of arrogance, calling her by name. He acts with fake intimacy and complains she should have let him know, since he would have gladly escorted her himself. Facing the rival, the MC remembers that, in his previous incarnation, this kid loved to humiliate him just for fun. Completely sick of the act, Claire cuts him off and tells the annoying boy to get lost. Even getting rejected to his face, Anderson insists, asking her not to be cold and claiming she knows the love he feels. Pissed off at the annoyance, the heiress raises her voice and tells the intruder to get out of her sight for good. She turns her back decisively, reinforcing she doesn't care about his dad's influence and demanding absolute distance. Filled with sudden rage, the spoiled noble loses it and mentally judges the girl as a massive ingrate. In a furious attack, he charges aggressively toward the young woman, screaming orders for her to come back right there and then. But before reaching her, a strong hand catches the brutal attack midway. With an incredible reflex, the young master deflects the rich aggressor's arm with absolute precision. Protecting the girl, Rode calmly steps between the out-of-control noble and the heiress of House Flora. Flustered by the interruption, Anderson looks at the MC with pure hatred and demands to know who the bold guy is. Soon, a henchman steps up and whispers the boy's name into the angry heir's ear. Knowing who he is talking to, the troublemaker changes his stance to mockery, making fun of the famous good-for-nothing from the Morris family. Without hesitating, the coward throws a direct and brutal punch right at the MC's face. With absurd power, Rode catches the punch with one hand, unleashing his dark aura while ordering the kid to back off. The crowd around goes into shock, recalling Anderson's cruelty, certain the youngest Morris will meet his maker right now. But extremely calm, the Necromancer squeezes the opponent's wrist and reminds him the girl already ordered him to back away. Surprised by the protective attitude, the heiress of House Flora can't believe the weak boy is actually protecting her. Refusing the order, the noble tries to pull his arm back very violently. Spreading furious magic, Anderson yells, asking who the loser thinks he is to ruin his fun. The Necromancer just gives a scary glare with his irises glowing in a piercing blue. Instantly, the allies hold back the angry air, warning him that the schoolyard isn't meant for brawling. Upset, the opponent walks away with his cronies, muttering that the useless guy had his life saved by a miracle. Gossip runs wild all around, and the bully sweats cold, admitting that the lethal glare gave him genuine panic. And so, the preppy kids vanish into the bushes of the giant magic academy. Instead of saying thanks, Claire insults Rode, calling him dumb, and complains the interference only causes trouble since House Rune is dangerous. She turns her back snobbishly, telling Rode to watch his own back because the rival there holds a grudge. Breaking the shock of the tension, a blonde classmate runs across the lawn shouting her friend's name. Claire's apathy ends and turns into a warm hug the moment she sees the student Anna. Asking about the weird figure near them, the blonde hears Claire say dryly that it's just the little Morris kid. Anna happily gossips, recalling the stories of him being the family's useless burden, but gets scolded to keep her voice down. The heiress justifies the forced escort, and the companion teases, saying at least she got a pack mule. Checking the whole scene, the Witcher pulls from his memory that Anna betrayed the girl in past plots, and he decides to keep an eye on her. Sitting through the classes, Rode doesn't even listen to the teacher's blah blah blah, thinking solely about a top-tier treasure hidden in the vaults there. He holds the sacred intel that the Tear of Demise overflows with mana to vastly upgrade his legendary warrior. As the subject wraps up, the Dark Lord promises to get his claws on that crystalline material as soon as possible. Anna stretches her body on the bench, talking very excitedly about the classes being over, and suggests hitting a party. Claire argues, warning about the academic futures, letting her know the students need to focus on studying so they don't fail. Pulling strings, Anna hypes up her rich friend's natural talents and tries to say short breaks don't cause magical ruins. In the same breath, Anderson shouts, echoing the girl's stated desire for the school breaks. Showing off rich dad arrogance, he claims to have paid for the finest dishes at a luxurious inn, wanting their honorable company. Stunned by the guy's gold, Anna asks about the pricey tabs, but Anderson beats his chest, waving the bills in exchange for chic female appearances in their circle. Thrilled about the expensive free pass, the blonde tries to squeeze a yes out of her friend, swearing they are grand gestures worthy of the clean blood of local high nobles. Throwing some nasty jabs, she points out that some folks present have a life with absolutely zero usefulness to society. Pulling hands mercilessly, she squeezes and yells so much that Flora gives in, agreeing to tag along for the trashy, spoiled night out with the snobby rich crew. Happy for breaking through the defenses, the brat points the way outside to the streets from the rich doors of the immense magic school there, in the elitist education empire of the arrogant chic snobs. Out of sight, the Dark Master's pocket rattle pulses with heat, reporting the complete preparation of the Ashblade pieces for the ancient cures discussed in the dead squares of the healed mystic lord in the distant chapters of the Dark Memories back in the whole kingdom, during the intense, lethal battles fought against the false fallen phantom lord in the Dark Monster forest there. With the scheme in hand, the go-getter asks for an official ride to the bourgeois tavern, wearing the deadly noble clan's uniform to pick him up at the dirty tables there, in a few short hours of useless partying. The crew in expensive clothes walk smoothly on the lawns, laughing at the sunny end of the rich noble academy. Hearing the footsteps in the rear, the captain of the jerks stops the route, furiously asking the reasons why the walking trash of a wimp Morris is following the herd. Ignoring the jerk's tantrums, he returns to the temporal loss plan, where that night led to the bizarre end of the failed engagement, and decides to go to the boondocks of the club to investigate dark macabre traces of the cursed slime to erase problems. Confirming serious risks circling the party, he puts his foot down, maintaining his stubbornness in tagging along and investigating the heavy fatal catastrophe plots of the missing companions that finished off his past fiancée, left bankrupt and ruined in pain, without comfort from the houses of the rich Flora girls. Very annoyed, feeling her wishes ignored, Claire lays out the cards, telling Rode to get lost since the institution's bell rang, freeing the burden of the maternal obligation of watching the backs of the snobby, spoiled girls from the little cliques there. Flipping the switch on his cowardly plans, Anderson throws on a friendly cape, agreeing with the useless tick lingering near their rich, strolling entourage. Underneath his shirt he stews in deadly fury, wishing to backstab the stupid figure who humiliated his henchmen during the previous break in the sunny venue full of people there with eyewitnesses in the crowd. Drooling over the farce, Anna congratulates the supposedly good and honorable heart of the rich leader, claiming blind admiration for him. The rich girl accepts staying quiet while her friend implies weird obsessions of goofy boys sneaking behind skirts on the sly right nearby, in front of the strolling crowds on the sidewalks in question. Finally, the elite bunch docks at the fancy glass windows of the famous tavern as the last rays erase, the mountains fading into the brightness in the dusk at the fatal fall of the dangerous streets. Pumping out chests in pride, the preppy guy breaks the thick boards, forcing big VIP arrivals into the seats of the plush, lavish round tables. Amid fake applause, the freeloaders cheer him happily for getting paid meals there at the establishment. However, the dark noble drinking area was immensely far from peaceful spots or safe places for the unprotected kids of the fake childish magic charade. Tossed awkwardly, heaps of skin and bones warriors covered in armored scratches fill their mouths with distilled juices, squealing like pigs at a feast. Probing clear demise, the fallen lord draws wet iron sniffing rod of the criminal butcher scavenger guild type from the coastal area, full of red and bloody dust from the heavy, rough, annoying, dirty, cruel, heartless, insensitive, rotten, cursed, corrupt circle there. The killer thirst in the big brute's soul windows proves the squad fears nothing in the land of mortals. The master from the back rows nails it that the filthy platoon sank the girl into the abyss in the erased script of the torn timelines, already surpassed from the ancient dead past. Feeling out urgencies, he shoots quick return orders to the young woman, suggesting they head back to the locks of their house fast right now, to avoid absurd tragedies from the criminal thorns. They're thirsty in the dark corners, chugging giant liters of bitter, terrible, gross, horrible, bad, strong, rotten, dense, dark stuff. Not even giving ears a chance, the wimp cuts road off and hurts the clueless master's hand. Anderson gets in the Necromancer's face, asking full of insane fury what his idiotic problem is for wanting runaways from the circle of expensive rich knights paid on the influential Big Daddy's tab. Oblivious to the pit of demise, Claire shuts down Anderson's whining, affirming loyalty to the closed party pact of the profit-thirsty blonde friend. The rich leader imposes banishment orders and mocks the failed traditions of the wimpy home of the easy, fragile, wimpy Morris boys, laughing at the shame of the annoying, clueless, useless escort there. The screams sharpen the hearing of a killer hound, drinking at the table, who chuckles sneakily, catching easy nobles in the roost. He lifts his massive frame, mocking and questioning the dumb exits from the castles full of plentiful bread. Slow stone footsteps guide full-bodied brutalities in the scary directions, pinned right near the scary cold young faces in the exact same moment of surprise, right there in front of the giant heavy door of the cheap luxurious fancy, yet cursed stupid weird dive bar infested by dirty filthy fallen killer scum fiends always hanging out, sitting and eating there. A scary vile executioner's smile and tongue wetting the dryness in the words worn of hot parties with the delicious presence of the fine dolls exposed there to dangerous carnal risks all night long in the dark rotten pubs right there. Insulted by the mess, Anderson yells at the table boy, demanding reasons for the mercenary trash in the expensive meters reserved for the private parties of the obnoxious spoiled rich kid. The spoken aggression dries up the rotten smile being reloaded for the pure and exact desire to crush weak souls for good on the empty chairs there by the walls, destroyed by old axe swings and past battles in the stinky, fetid, dark, ugly, noisy, scary, imposing, expensive, dirty, heavy, trashy, dense, dark, rotten, horrible, dangerous, annoying hall. Desperate, the establishment employee tries to calm the nerves, begging the young master to push the party to the next night in order to avoid a tragedy. Rejecting the absurd proposal, the gang leader aggressively questions if the manager really wants him to be embarrassed in front of his special guest. The employee grabs the boy's arm, begging for common sense, warning that those outsiders are ruthless fighters who spare no one. Blinded by his own arrogance, Anderson keeps his nose up, saying a bunch of nobodies won't outshine the great name of House Rune. Without an ounce of patience for the noble speech, one of the mercenaries grabs a student's collar and tells everyone to get lost if they want to stay in one piece. Outraged by the disrespect, the school's henchmen rush forward, guaranteeing no one dares to clash with their leader like that. A violent crash echoes through the tavern when the two groups finally clash directly. With terrifying brutality, the experienced warriors subdue the young apprentices with extreme ease, crushing any resistance. Shock takes over Anderson as he realizes those filthy men actually had the guts to fight back against the attacks. Showing total contempt for the preppy kids, one of the criminals pours a drink on a fallen boy's head, asking if they value their lives. Seeing their classmates suffering on the floor, the group gets the message that if they were outside the city they would have already met a tragic end. Watching the rivals despair from far away, the Necromancer just smiles discreetly, finding the whole situation quite amusing. Totally cowardly, the heir swallows his pride and begs for an immediate truce, demanding to speak with the gang's leader to use his dad's influence as a shield. The demand gets loud laughs from the criminals, who mock his face, warning that a kid doesn't have the standing to exchange words with the captain. At the back of the dimly lit hall, the intimidating figure of the feared leader named Kent watches the mess with eyes thirsty for chaos. The name weighs like an anchor, making the young master go into absolute panic. Remembering this lethal group doesn't hesitate to eliminate even high nobility. Staring the boy down, Kent mocks the fact that he's the youngest son of the influential Lord Rune and claims his life isn't worth much. Fallen on the floor, one of the boys goes into total panic, recognizing the dreaded group of ruthless mercenaries by their dark reputation. In sheer desperation, Anna hugs the heiress, crying that they messed with the wrong people and now they are all totally doomed. Laughing, the criminal leader mocks the terrified faces the students made just from hearing the grand name of his lethal gang. Completely pressured, Anderson figures he can't embarrass himself in front of the girl if he wants to keep being taken seriously. Wanting to smooth over the tense situation, he apologizes for the rash attack and suggests they forget everything in the name of his lineage. Kent sits back relaxed and admits the kid's dad has a great reputation, even considering he'd be doing the Lord a small favor. Immediately, the school's cronies breathe a sigh of relief at the negotiation, heavily praising the boy's supposedly great influence. But the relief ends fast when the mercenary demands the two noble girls dance for them in exchange for the safety of everyone present. To make the humiliation worse, the villain forces the spoiled heir himself to invite the young women to use the tavern's dance floor. Hyped by the situation, the other thugs cheer loudly at the chance to see high society ladies serving as entertainment. Unable to stand that absurd circus any longer, Rhodes steps forward decisively and places himself between the students and the thirsty brutes. Anderson panics and warns the captain that the respected heiress of House Flora can't be treated so lightly. The classmates themselves quickly tell the guy to shut up, agreeing to hand the girl over just so they can save their own skins. The preppy kids hit rock bottom and cry, begging Claire to accept the order and avoid a bigger tragedy for them. The noble keeps her posture firm and tells the MC to get her friend out of there, blindly trusting the villains wouldn't harass her. The Necromancer answers as calmly as possible that she doesn't need to go that far to fix that little problem. At that moment, the young master takes a step forward, glaring at the mercenary leader, and suggests they end that clown show right now. Totally confused by the kid's audacity, the captain furiously asks who he thinks he is to give orders in that place. Anna loses it and calls Rhodes crazy, accusing the guy of trying to ruin the fragile peace the rival had just secured. Suddenly, the huge vice-captain named Rum stands up, extremely furious at the meddling student's unacceptable interference. He lets his thugs know he will teach the kid a harsh lesson first so that everyone can enjoy the girl's big show afterwards. Wasting no time, the brute leaps with brutal force toward the MC, ready to crush him in a single heavy attack. Terrified by the sudden offensive, Claire screams her bodyguard's name, believing that would be the guy's tragic end. But the Necromancer simply looks up, maintaining a scary coldness, while the giant warrior approaches fast through the air. Annoyed by the prey's lack of fear, the mercenary quickly preps a lethal slashing spell to punish the kid's boldness. A massive wave of magic flames is violently fired at the skinny target, who remains completely still in the same spot. The heiress turns her face and screams desperately, seeing the massive fire completely swallow the exact spot where the guy was standing. Away from the mess, the spoiled heir demands the useless guy beg for forgiveness, while his cronies just celebrate their rival's tragic end. Right after, the impact of the flaming magic causes a huge explosion that dangerously shakes all the tavern walls. When the dust settles, the thug's jaws drop, realizing the kid dodged the magic swordsman's spell. With everyone distracted in the hall, Rhodes sneaks up beside a mercenary and very politely asks to borrow his sword. The giant boils with hatred for being completely ignored in the fight, and charges again, swearing to end the cocky boy's life. With a firm grip on the blade, the MC tells his hidden spiritual lackey that they now have a real weapon for the brawl. Immediately, the legendary knight's spirit projects on his back and agrees to pay back the aggression with the same heavy coin. A much more intense and incredibly destructive sea of blue flames is unleashed, ripping through the establishment's air with overwhelming force. The head-on collision of the two spells results in the vice-captain's crude blade being shattered into several useless pieces instantly. Stunned that his favorite weapon turned to dust, the mercenary's eyes widen, gripped by sudden dread facing that opponent. The broken metal shards fall heavily on the wooden floor, while a tense silence takes over everyone in the place. Rum sweats cold and asks indignantly how a simple preppy brat had enough power to destroy his gear like that. Totally humiliated in front of his boss and the gang, the brute rips his shirt off, ready to get his wounded pride back. With his muscles popping, he charges barehanded, claiming the team's true talent is indeed hand-to-hand combat. The giant tries to grab the fragile Necromancer with his huge hands, aiming to crush all his bones in one raw move. Calmly, the young master dodges the strike, acknowledging his current body still can't handle such an intense, direct clash of strength. Because of this, he chooses to summon his boss monster's skeletal arms straight out of his own shadows to even the odds. The undead solid claws grab the warrior midair, while the guy cynically asks where he was planning to go. Giving no chance to retreat, Road intensely channels his lackey's dark energy and fires a point-blank fire spell. The explosive impact tosses the opponent's heavy body across the dark hall as if he were just a fragile ragdoll. Amidst destroyed tables and chairs, the giant falls defeated and completely knocked out under all the tavern's wooden debris. The brutality of the counterattack leaves the brute with his eyes rolled back, proving the magic power gap was absurdly huge. Overcome with shock, one of the thugs can't believe the strong vice-captain lost to such a useless noble in a matter of seconds. However, the blow of that crushing defeat only serves to further enrage the rest of the gang, who tighten the circle, thirsty for revenge. Captain Kent takes the front line and glares at the boy, promising to tear him apart with no mercy for such an insult to the group. Desperate about the scum's fury, the classmates curse Road, thinking they'll all end up taking the fall real hard now. Cowardly as always, the spoiled kid suggests they run away, leaving the useless guy alone to try and hold off the gang's violent fury. Anna pulls her friend's arm, begging to escape, convincing the noble to abandon the boy to avoid becoming the criminal's hostage. Seeing that the girl finally walked out the front door, the necromancer smiles in relief since he no longer needs to hold back his own strength. Thirsty for profit, the villain warns he will make the kid suffer and then demand an absurd fortune from his family as ransom payment. Tired of delays, the MC decides that turning that cocky captain into a submissive zombie would be the most practical solution there. But before the mortal combat really begins, a very imposing voice echoes from the entrance asking how much their leader's life is worth. Annoyed by the annoying interruption, the gang leader turns to the door, threatening to send the intruder straight to the grave too. From the shadows of the hallway, elite guard Leon of the influential house Ashblade appears, walking slowly with an extremely threatening posture. The villain's smug smile melts instantly, making way for a cold sweat, recognizing the seasoned warrior from afar. With total disregard for the scum, the noble steps closer and bows respectfully to the MC, asking if those guys hurt him. Laughing, the young master shows he is spotless, while the experienced guard claims none of those clowns could even touch him. The captain loses his ground, seeing someone with such status treat the school's rejected student as if he were the purest royalty. With blood in his eyes, Leon demands to know who gave those worms permission to touch an honored guest of the great local patriarch. The mercenary terrifiedly notices that the preppy kid's influence is nothing compared to the iron grip the Ashblade family holds. Without thinking about the consequences, the leader drops to his knees, bowing to the floor and handing over his dagger to beg for mercy for his own life. The other criminals watch that total humiliation in shock, struggling to believe the captain gave up all his pride so fast. The guy calmly examines the received leadership emblem while listening to the villain reinforce the persistent apologies for the mistake. In an extreme survival move, Kent swears all those brutal mercenaries will act as loyal hounds, obeying the new lord. Road notes the criminals' smarts and coldly concludes that a living gang brings much greater logistical advantages than a fallen army. To keep up good diplomatic appearances with his valuable ally, the boy accepts the small deal, tucking the old dagger into his clothes. However, with his dark eyes glowing intensely in the hall's shadows, he coldly warns that an educational punishment will still be applied. Acting fast, the young master uses his dark magic to pull the mercenary captain with an absurd force. Completely in shock, Kent barely has time to process what is happening as he feels his body being dragged through the air. Right behind him, the immense skeletal creature summoned by the MC emerges, breaking everything and grabbing the criminal firmly. The villain lets out an agonizing scream while taking the harsh punishment Road had promised to teach an unforgettable lesson. Problem solved, the Necromancer turns his back and calls Leon to leave, leaving the rest of the gang begging for mercy on the tavern floor. Once outside, the warrior escorts the boy toward the exit, while the thugs breathe relieved for having survived the encounter. Sweating cold, one of the mercenaries mentally gives thanks they didn't piss the master off even more, knowing the whole gang would have been wiped off the map. Wasting no time, a luxurious carriage speeds through the city streets, taking the MC straight to his next goal. The fast trip ends in front of the gates of the Ashblade family's imposing estate, anxiously awaiting the savior's arrival. Walking calmly, the guy enters the mansion accompanied by the elite guard. Seeing him walk in, Elinor runs toward him, showing great joy that he finally arrived to fulfill the deal. Right then, one of the house servants presents a tray holding the magic stones and mysterious shards demanded for the ritual. The young noble emphasizes that these materials are extremely rare, and the family needed a massive effort to gather everything so fast. Satisfied with the item's quality, Rhodes says that will be more than enough, and already starts channeling his intense bluish mana. Wrapping the tray in his aura, he starts the purification process, activating the magic artifact's energy all at once. Patriarch Ignia waits sitting in his chair, visibly weakened by the evil energy, while the boy approaches holding the purifying magic. Taking absolute control of the situation, Rhodes firmly orders everyone to step away from the area immediately. The young man focuses his attention on the old lord, getting ready to confront the entity destroying that body from the inside. Reacting to the magical provocation, a scary corpse-like face made of pure dark smoke projects out of the patriarch's chest, roaring. Without showing any hesitation, the necromancer extends his glowing hand straight toward that dark manifestation. The entity tries to pull back desperately from the overwhelming power, but the bluish aura wraps around it, completely cutting off all its escape routes. Flashing a ruthless glare, the MC coldly warns there is nowhere for that thing to run. The magic squeezes the dark smoke with brutal force, suppressing the cursed spirit that tries to fight the grip uselessly. Watching the scary scene from a distance, Elinor is stunned, realizing that is the true evil that haunted her grandfather for over a decade. Leon also watches the ritual, sweating cold, amazed at how such a dangerous monster can't escape the grasp of such a young boy. Seeing the creature's useless resistance, Rhodes tightens the spell even more and asks ironically if it still has strength to fight. With a muffled crash, the curse's structure gives way under the magic pressure and starts shattering in the air into thousands of glowing pieces. The young master quickly clasps his hands together, compressing all that dense dark energy into a single floating point. In a few seconds, he converts the residue of the ancient spell straight into a solid crystal and seals it perfectly. Admiring the beautiful artifact created, the guy cheers internally for having refined his first tier of the fallen and plans to use it soon to strengthen his legendary knight. Fascinated by how easy the process was, the elite guard can barely contain his shock, seeing a decade-long problem solved in moments. Relieved, the girl runs close to her grandfather, touching his hands and lovingly asking how he's feeling now. However, the necromancer cuts the family moment short, suggesting she step away from the old lord immediately for safety. Before the young woman can understand the warning, an absurd amount of built-up energy suddenly bursts from the patriarch's body. The shockwave lightly tosses Elinor backward, leaving her scared and confused about what is happening to him. Keeping his usual calmness, Rhodes explains the spirit was acting like a parasite, draining all the noble's natural flow. As the old warrior stands up surrounded by a majestic aura, the kid concludes his body has finally started to recover its original strength. Staring at his own trembling hands, the Lord feels the vigor pulsing in his veins and realizes he actually leveled up magically after being stuck for so long. A laugh of pure joy echoes through the hall as Ignia celebrates the unexpected chance to reach the advanced stage even at his advanced age. Watching the leader's excitement, Leon reflects on how House Ashblade suffered cruel pressure from rival families during all those dark years. Full of hope, the warrior stares at the young master's back, feeling immense gratitude that he changed the whole clan's destiny. With the magic whirlwind finally stabilized, the granddaughter calls out for the patriarch, tearing up seeing him healthy again. Cutting the emotional mood, the boy details that the old man's strong constitution allowed him to resist the curse, turning the trial into constant training. The explanation makes Elinor connect the dots, amazed realizing the Lord's intervention turned great suffering into a priceless gift. Confirming his granddaughter's theory, the elderly man acknowledges that besides having his life saved by the boy, he also received a boost that seemed impossible for his current rank. With eyes shining with determination, the patriarch swears to himself that he will now take back everything the family lost during his weakness. As a sign of deep respect, the old man and his granddaughter bow deeply to the guy, promising the house will serve them unconditionally starting today. Not caring much about the offered loyalty, the MC waves off the formality claiming he already collected his price, but says he needs to clear up a doubt. Totally helpful, the Lord straightens up and asks the young man to ask absolutely anything he wishes. Raising the corrupted artifact, Rode asks for the exact location where the curse was cast, figuring tracking the source would score him endless crystals. The elderly man recalls with regret a huge crusade organized by the Empire in the Valley of Laments, revealing that's where he ended up falling into the demonic trap. Analyzing the intel, the kid realizes the place is infested with powerful monsters and decides to put off the visit until his body can handle the challenge. Sometime later, the Ashblade carriage cuts through the city streets during the late afternoon hauling the Necromancer. During the ride, Leon proudly lets him know the residence the master requested is already prepped right near the Magic Academy. The vehicle stops, and the MC steps out to check his new temporary base of operations. However, he is left totally speechless when he runs into a massive lot and high-end luxury architecture. Letting out a long, tired sigh, the guy grumbles he just wanted a quiet corner to sleep and not a flashy palace like that. Far away in the main hall of the restored mansion, the old lord's vibrant laugh keeps echoing endlessly. The girl watches the scene with a sweat drop on her forehead, reminding her grandfather their savior left quite a while ago. Catching his breath, the patriarch apologizes for the hype and advises his granddaughter to get close to the guy, pointing out he's the most impressive prodigy to ever step foot there. With her cheeks quite flushed, Elinor shyly agrees with the father figure's advice and promises to do her best. Soon the leader's expression darkens, taken by seriousness, warning he'll use his recovered strength to crush the rival family he suspects planted the curse. Meanwhile, nightfall wraps the premises of the noble House Flora in deep silence. Walking down the luxurious castle hallways, the family heiress is surprised by her mother's voice asking why she took so long. The matriarch approaches with a light smile, curious to know if her daughter managed to have a nice time with the Morris boy. Avoiding giving details about the danger they faced, Claire just sighs tiredly and confirms they did indeed meet at the academy. In the young woman's mind, the images of the guy dodging the deadly attack and fighting on par with mercenaries keep looping relentlessly. The weight of those memories makes her secretly admit the boy might be very far from the human trash the whole nobility usually smears. Parallel to that, the MC stands in the middle of a dark hall inside his extravagant new home. Staring at the corrupted stone he extracted from the old lord, he figures the perfect time has come to upgrade his main summon stats. In a tone of absolute command, the Necromancer calls out his battle minion's name to start the power transfer. The imposing Phantom Knight appears kneeling on the stone floor, revering his master with unshakable submission. Analyzing the spirit's performance drop over the centuries, the guy calculates his current level plummeted to the intermediate stage of a magic swordsman. Determined to fix this flaw fast, the kid tosses the raw stone toward the creature and orders it to devour the gift. The undead crushes the artifact with its own hands right away, releasing a colossal torrent of corrupted power into its own essence. Absorbing all that negative charge from the black crystal, a whirlwind of bluish magic starts flowing intensely through the room. The corrupted artifact glows strongly while perfectly merging into the creature's dark chest. With a crack echoing through the dark hall, the spirit absorbs the massive energy and is swallowed by even more intense blue flames. Sharing the same upgrade, the young master's body overflows with an overwhelming aura as he feels the magical shift. He instantly notices that directly buffing Bladeseat ended up boosting his own strength to a much higher level. Looking at the magic in the palm of his hand, Rode cheers internally for reaching the peak of the Archmage apprentice phase. Satisfied, the guy notices the lackey also hit an advanced intermediate level, but decides to keep this trump card hidden for now. The next morning, the vibe in the Magic Academy hallways goes back to its normal pace of classes and side chats. Curious about her friend's posture, Anna asks what the heiress of House Flora is looking for so closely. Claire admits she's worried about the MC vanishing, while the classmate coldly suggests the mercenaries probably finished him off already. Bothered by the insensitive comment, the noble immediately claps back, stating the guy only stayed behind to ensure their escape. Shrugging, Anna says she just pointed out the facts and remembers how cruel that group of criminals tends to be. Right then, the spoiled heir walks down the stairs foaming with rage for losing his moment of glory to the loser. The troublemaker kid gets a huge scare seeing Road walking calmly down the hall as if nothing happened. Totally baffled, Anderson can't understand how the useless guy survived the violent encounter without losing even a limb. Relieved to see her bodyguard in one piece, Claire runs up to him and he reassures her saying the gang won't be a problem anymore. Anderson approaches full of doubts, demanding explanations on how he got out unharmed and what he meant by that statement. The blonde quickly assumes the Morris family must have paid a fortune for the ransom and goes back to spitting venom at the boy. The sound of firm footsteps echoes through the room, cutting the argument as the teacher walks into the classroom. Instructor Margaret announces they will all do a practical training in the monster forest now that they are official apprentices. Sizing up the destination, the Necromancer remembers that's the gang's turf and decides to keep an eye on the girl to avoid risks. Seizing a moment of distraction, he pulls out the magic communicator he got from his newest servant. Hidden in the empty hallway, the young master directly contacts the mercenary leader to clear up a few doubts. Very helpful through the artifact, Kent answers promptly and lets him know he is fully available to answer anything. Getting straight to the point, Road demands a full report on the forest, since the criminals know that territory well. The mercenary warns the place is unstable because an old tomb is leaking dark mana that's driving the beasts crazy. Reporting the severity of the situation, Kent states the scouts lost their minds investigating the deep area and recommends keeping a distance. Worried about the master's safety, he asks if the boy is heading there and offers a full gang escort. Sitting calmly in the shadows, the MC declines the offer and guarantees that info is already more than enough. A confident smile flashes on the guy's face, seeing in this mortal anomaly the perfect chance to beef up his dark army. Soon after, several luxurious carriages take the whole academy class toward the city limits. The heiress and her friend watch the countryside scenery through the window, enjoying the very quiet trip. In another vehicle, the henchman quietly asks if they still plan to teach the youngest Morris a lesson. With a wicked posture, Anderson warns his main target is the girl, but promises to crush the rival if he dares get in the way. The entourage finally reaches the snowy outskirts of the dangerous forest, and the students start hopping out. The instructor gathers the students and announces it's time to put all the theory into a real fight. She details that the day's mission is to hunt the shadow wolves attacking villages and bring back a claw as proof before nightfall. Wanting to show off, the troublemaker noble fires a high-speed flame spell through the forest right away. The violent explosion knocks the target down instantly, drawing enthusiastic applause from his loyal followers. Dripping with arrogance, Anderson keeps the fire in his hands and promises to hunt enough items for the whole group to impress the noble. Anna is enchanted by the kid's destructive power and pressures her friend to team up with him for pure safety. Having zero interest in the little show, Claire prefers to stick close to Road, remembering he walked away spotless from a much worse threat. While the argument goes on, the MC senses a subtle shift in the environment and stops, focused. Closing his eyes, he uses his heightened magic perception to scan a very wide radius. Mapping dozens of beasts around, the Necromancer picks up the exact energy of demise coming from the depths that the mercenary mentioned. Taking the lead, Road invites the girl to team up with him, planning to keep her safe from that unstable energy. The heiress happily agrees and accepts the guy's proposal right away, ignoring her friend's advice. Nearby, the spoiled heir holds up the carcass of a downed wolf to flaunt his great superiority to the others. With a smug air, he downplays the challenge, saying those weak beasts aren't even enough for a warm-up. Running ahead, the blonde catches her friend's attention to show off the supposedly amazing feat of their classmate. Without asking permission, Honor excitedly asks if the two of them can join his group for the hunt. The preppy kid accepts instantly in a very welcoming way, guaranteeing he will protect the ladies from any forest danger. While they chat casually, the brush rustles, revealing a feline resting peacefully among the rocks. Suddenly, purple magic smoke quickly spreads through the vegetation, hitting the local wildlife. Commanded by the corrupted energy, the monster lets out a violent roar, entering an uncontrollable rage. The same smoke reaches a nearby shadow wolf, who starts foaming at the mouth, losing all control. Totally dominated by the dark spell, the beast gains a scary glow and readies to attack anything in sight. Watching the environment from afar, the MC spots the abrupt and dangerous shift in the wildlife's behavior. The teacher also feels the magical pressure of a boss monster, getting intrigued, noticing the young master sensed the same thing. Without hesitation, Margaret runs deep into the trees, determined to take out the biggest threat before the students get hurt. Annoyed by Road's presence, Anderson hostilely questions why the loser is following their group. Ignoring the rival, the Necromancer mentally concludes the aura drove the beasts crazy, making their level way too dangerous for rookies. Flashing pure confidence, the troublemaker tells everyone to stay close to him, promising a successful mission. The group of students slowly moves through the dark forest's thick mist, having no clue of the absolute risk. Suddenly, the spoiled kid stops walking, noticing the area got way too quiet, and the wolves simply vanished. Before he can figure out the flaw, a corrupted monster leaps from the shadows, roaring fiercely at him. Wanting to keep up the hero act, the kid quickly preps his spell and tells the MC to watch his talent. Without backing down, Anderson fires a giant flaming explosion right in the middle of the charging beast's face. The blazing attack hits the creature's chest dead on, kicking up a thick cloud of smoke in the area. But when the dust settles, the beast lands on the ground without a single scratch on its body. Dread takes over the noble's face as he panics, realizing his main technique failed miserably. With eyes glowing intensely, the wolf lets out a deafening roar, showing its claws up close. Completely cowed by the brutal power gap, the guy drops to the floor, trying to protect himself any way he can. The beast's predatory glare locks onto its helpless prey, ready to finish the unprepared student right then and there. At the last second, Rode calmly steps between the monster and the rival, radiating magic, leaving Anderson totally in shock. With a brutal impact, the corrupted wolf is tossed far away and lands totally defeated on the ground. Shocked by the sudden scene, Claire calls out Rhodes' name, unable to believe what just happened. Anna sweats cold, realizing he survived the mercenaries on his own merit, and refuses to accept that the loser has so much power. Scanning the surroundings, the MC notices there are still a lot of beasts around and decides to summon his lackey monster to handle it. Wasting no time, the guy leaps deep into the thick forest, while the troublemaker noble screams desperately for him to come back. Walking through the dark mist, the young master soon runs into a whole pack of fierce wolves blocking the path. Keeping absolute cool, he simply orders his giant servant to appear at once. Right then, a dull rumble starts violently shaking the earth under the trees. The colossal bone monster bursts from the ground, sending a massive wave of dark energy everywhere. Leaning on the giant frame, Rode points forward and orders the creature to end any corrupted beast in the area. Answering the immediate command, the undead lets out a scary roar that echoes through the whole forest. With a formidable leap, the lackey jumps high, tearing through the night air. The monster lands, crushing the ground with a devastating area attack that kicks up debris everywhere. Watching the tremor from afar, Anderson recognizes the beast's brutal technique and begs the girls not to get near the danger. Worried, the heiress asks if the guy will be okay, but the blonde quickly assumes the idiotic boy must have become monster food. Terrified, Anna asks if the spoiled heir is going to protect the two of them, getting a very stuttered yes as an answer. Far from the student's cowardice, the bone lackey keeps relentlessly crushing every single one of the aggressive wolves. In a few seconds, the imposing creature stands victorious over the downed beasts in the brush. Scanning the rest of the pack, the Necromancer notices those aren't corrupted and orders the servant to let them run. Obeying promptly, the giant stops the attack and just watches the normal animals run far away. Suddenly, a loud rustling in the bushes grabs the attention of the trio of students standing on the trail. The blonde panics completely, fearing the scary monster changed paths and came straight for them. Relief washes over the group, seeing it was just regular wolves running away from the real threat. Regaining his arrogant pose, Anderson puffs his chest and guarantees he'll handle those weak beasts to defend the girls. Meanwhile, Instructor Margaret shows up, floating with her staff and concentrating an absurdly hot fireball. With a fixed and determined gaze, the teacher aims at the center of the dark energy, ready to end the problem. A colossal torrent of holy flames drops from the sky, completely sweeping the perimeter in a lethal strike. Landing near the ashes, the woman breathes easy, believing she finally eliminated the monster lord causing the chaos. But she soon realizes the dark energy there is way worse than she imagined and blames herself for not noticing it sooner. Right then, intense and crackling bluish smoke begins to form very close by. Shock paints the teacher's face as she stares at what just appeared in front of her. Riding slowly through the shadows, an imposing phantom knight wrapped in blue flames approaches. The dense, corrupted aura flows straight from that mysterious creature's worn armor. Analyzing the magic pressure, the mage concludes that is the true source of the whole disturbance in the forest. She quickly gets that it's an undead warrior that woke up from some ancient tomb nearby. Margaret deduces this being's presence is what drove the animals crazy, and figures its level is dangerously high. Knowing she's weaker than the opponent, she decides to risk her own life to stop the creature from reaching the students. With pure determination, the instructor channels all her mana reserves for a single ultimate attack. With a yell of effort, she casts her most powerful technique aimed at completely destroying the target. A gigantic meteor of flames crashes from the heavens straight at the cursed knight. Without backing up a millimeter, the entity raises its spear and clashes its blue aura directly against the firepower. The clash of magic generates a deafening explosion that wastes everything in a huge blast radius. Panting and with a hopeful smile, Margaret wonders if her suicide attack finally worked. To her utter despair, the monster emerges from the smoke totally spotless and swinging its lethal weapon. Tearing up the battlefield, the knight charges relentlessly ready to crush the opponent. In another part of the woods, the MC praises his monster's good work and orders it to return to the shadows. Suddenly, a familiar magic wave makes the guide turn his head on high alert instantly. Watching the blue glow at the end of the trail, he realizes the real target of interest is coming exactly his way. The undead knight stops imposingly in front of the kid, who fascinatedly analyzes the revived ancient warrior. Shifting his stance, the young master's eyes glow brightly while asking why the creature isn't kneeling. Exuding the authority of an absolute monarch, Rode demands the spirit bow down right now. Resisting the order, the knight charges in a furious attack that the Necromancer blocks, generating a loud metallic clash. The creature forces the heavy blade down, with ruthless aggression trying to crush the kid. In a quick move, the monster spins the spear, firing a dense slash of bluish energy. The impact of the violent offensive drags the MC backward, cracking the ground along the way. Despite the absurd strength of the blow, the guide just praises the quality of that dark mana, showing no fear at all. Right then, the spirit's wild power creates a gigantic dark tornado that rips the area's sky. Feeling the pressure from far away, Claire shivers uncontrollably and asks in horror what that thing is. Flashing a wicked smile, the rival points out that's where Rode ran and concludes the loser must have already met his end. The pillar of pure calamity stays visible from very far away, marking the center of the isolated battlefield. Very badly hurt and out of strength, Margaret just watches the chaos from afar. The teacher tries to stand back up at all costs, desperate, remembering the students are exactly in the direction of that monster. In the middle of the ruined clearing, the young man and the legendary creature stare each other down in deadly silence. Rode comments that the corruption wiped out almost all the spirit's sanity, leaving only the instinct to devour the strongest target. Flashing a dominating and lethal glare, the Necromancer calls the warrior pathetic and lets him know he's going to end his suffering. Gathering its last bits of strength, the undead spins its heavy spear, prepping an overwhelming attack. Recognizing the entity before it, the corrupted beast mutters about the presence of a powerful king. Even instinctively cornered, the knight swears it will never submit and fires its furious charge technique. The wave of brutal destruction charges forward, tearing up the terrain in a straight line to annihilate the MC. Gauging the level of the strike, the guy calmly admits his fragile body still can't take a direct hit like that. So he calmly raises his hand and activates a dark art focused on manipulating the target's memories. Wrapped in forbidden magic, the young master just tells the creature to enjoy the little illusion he prepped. Immediately, the knight is thrown into a chaotic mental landscape full of red dirt and battle remains. The disturbing vision hits the spirit dead on, paralyzing all its offensive moves instantly. Trapped in the spell, the beast witnesses the terrifying past, where the monarch ruled an endless army of undead in a completely ruined world. Caught in the monarch's terrible illusion, the corrupted knight lets out a deafening scream of pure despair. The MC's imposing voice echoes in the creature's mind, stating that is the tomb he prepared especially for it. The guy figures that enemy's level is pretty similar to his own servants, making the situation perfect for a nice strength test. Right then, the imposing Bladeseat is summoned in its full form to face its first battle using all its royal power. Accepting the command instantly, the phantom lackey calls the Kid Lord and swears it will end that insolent opponent. Even with its sanity shattered by the spell, the corrupted monster charges furiously, swearing revenge, acting like a true combat machine. Without hesitating, the Blue Flame warrior charges at an impressive speed to intercept the rival's lethal dash. The cursed beast focuses entirely on the target, driven only by the dark energy's pure instinct for destruction. Slashing the air violently, the weapons of the two powerful beings clash midway. The head-on impact generates an absurd explosion of energy that sweeps the battlefield, scattering debris everywhere. Amid the chaos, Bladeseat forces its heavy blade against the enemy's spear in a fierce clash of raw strength. The crushing pressure from the clash between the two warriors makes the stone floor crack and sink beneath their feet. Exploiting a slight opening, the MC's lackey spins its body and preps an incredibly fast side slash. The weapons clash again, producing a massive metallic bang that echoes through the entire isolated area. With the impact of that last hit, the corrupted monster completely loses its balance and gets violently pushed back. Trying to recover from the blow, the cursed spirit goes into shock, realizing its opponent's colossal strength. Giving the adversary no time to breathe, the flaming knight raises its hand and starts gathering a massive amount of blue mana. It recognizes the enemy as a formidable warrior from the past, showing huge respect before ending the clash. Feeling the crushing pressure of its demise, the corrupted creature lets out another monstrous roar, trying to push away the looming danger. Driven by madness, the knight charges suicidally with its spear and orders the rival to disappear once and for all. A gigantic blast of pure dark energy fires from the tip of the weapon, ripping through the scenery with brutal intent. The black magic tears up the earth, lifting huge stone blocks as it relentlessly advances toward the glowing target. Watching the epic showdown from afar, the young master keeps a calm face, fully trusting his loyal servant's capability. To counter the offensive, Bladeseed activates a legendary sword technique and creates a spinning shield made of dense blue flames. The two spells collide in a terrifying crash, creating a titanic explosion that lights up the whole skyline of that abandoned place. When the flash fades, the corrupted creature steps back, trying to see the damage its desperate hit caused. The monster goes into total panic, realizing the target just vanished into the smoke, leaving the path empty. Suddenly, the phantom warrior appears, hovering in the air right behind the enemy, ready to land the deciding backstab. The Lord of the Beasts notices the fatal approach too late, freezing in terror with no way to defend from that bad spot. Using its secret soul-piercing technique, the Necromancer's ally lands a direct and lethal hit that blasts through the opponent's defenses. Right after the overwhelming impact, the corrupted energy keeping the creature on its feet starts slowly fading out like a candle in the wind. A colossal pillar of blue flames bursts from the ground, swallowing the defeated warrior's body in an extreme magic purification. Keeping a solemn posture, Bladeseed tells the downed opponent that the Supreme Lord finally granted it true rest. The monster's body can't handle the final pressure and shatters into thousands of pieces, turning into just dust in the air. With the battle over, the chaotic illusion scenery completely breaks down, bringing everyone back to the reality of the ruined forest. The loyal knight kneels immediately before the MC, proudly announcing the threat was totally wiped out. Walking calmly across the wrecked ground, the guy praises his subordinate's excellent work and shows a lot of satisfaction with the result. He holds out his right hand and absorbs all the spiritual essence left from the enemy, converting that into pure power for himself. Staring at the fading sparks, Rode pities the fate of that poor lost soul and orders it to rest in peace for all eternity. Far away, Teacher Margaret walks with a lot of difficulty through the trees, focused solely on stopping the terrible undead threat. Overcome by exhaustion, she leans on her staff, swearing to herself she'll never let that monster hurt her beloved students. However, the instructor freezes mid-step when she stumbles upon a scene that goes against all her scary expectations. Right in front of her, the supposedly weakest student in the academy is standing up, incredibly spotless in the center of a huge, devastated clearing. Keeping his usual coldness, the young master just turns his head slowly when the woman calls his name in total shock. The teacher sweats cold, realizing the crushing pressure vanished exactly at that spot, even considering the absurd thought that the boy was the big winner. Playing it off instantly, the guy flashes an innocent smile and says he's very relieved to see the teacher is safe. Suspicious, she asks directly if he saw a dangerous headless knight passing through that cratered perimeter. Keeping the lie flawless, the Necromancer swears he didn't bump into any freak like that along the way. To throw her off even more, he claims the clearing was already totally wrecked when he got there, tracking the school mission wolves. The mage looks for holes in the story, knowing there's no other powerful being around and that the kid just prefers hiding his real level from everyone. Accepting the mystery, Margaret agrees to take his word for it for now and sincerely thanks him on behalf of the saved students. Shrugging, the MC suggests they change the subject and warns that the sorry state of her clothes might scare the other students. The instructor looks at her own outfits torn by the heavy fight and ends up agreeing with the boy's sensible comment. With a quick flash of magic light, the woman perfectly restores her clothes, using a repair spell very handy for these emergencies. Now pulled together and looking intact, she tries to get the guy's attention again to continue the friendly chat. But silence takes over the place, leaving the instructor totally confused when she notices the young man vanished from there like a true ghost. Away from prying eyes, Road walks quickly through the dark part of the woods, following the clues left by the mercenary lord. He spots the absurd concentration of negative energy in the air, proving he's very close to the anomaly's central core. Stopping in front of a dark cave, the young master guesses that's where the corrupted knight ended up coming from to cause all the chaos. The inside of the rocky structure pulses with a violent flow of black magic, inviting the Necromancer to explore its hidden secrets. Fearless as always, the kid walks through the thick barrier of evil energy feeling totally at home, surrounded by that darkness. A slight smile pops up on the MC's face when he confirms he finally found exactly what he'd been looking for the whole trip. The underground hall reveals a huge magic circle drawn on the floor, proving the anomaly wasn't just a simple freak of nature. Reacting to an intruder's presence, the violent remnants of the spell form dark tentacles that try to attack the guy sneakily. Exuding the authority of an absolute monarch, the Necromancer just barks a harsh command telling that inferior magic to get out of there. The attacking flow breaks apart instantly and backs away scared of the true Shadow Lord's absurd pressure. Stepping onto the center of the arcane matrix, Road spots the installed crystals and guesses someone used that to force the Millennial Knight to wake up. Analyzing the evidence, the young man concludes this trick was the real culprit for driving all the local wildlife crazy. Picking up one of the dark ores from the ground, he mocks the sloppy job, calling the spell a cheap trick that only serves to insult necromancy. Not caring what the mysterious villain's grand plan is, the kid pockets the corrupted item knowing the material will be very useful in the future. Far away from danger, the instructors gather the students at the edge of the forest, cheering in relief that no bigger threat reached them. One of the teachers confirms the mission's success and announces the whole class will head straight back to the safety of the Magic Academy. Bothered by her bodyguard's absence, the heiress of House Flora tells Margaret the energy chaos only started after the guy went into the bushes. The instructor asks the young woman to calmly repeat the info, quickly putting together the pieces of that big and dangerous puzzle. With a gleam of certainty in her eyes, the mage confirms her suspicions that the student really was the hero and gets scared wondering what his strength limit is. Leaning on the usual cowardly theory, one of Anderson's henchmen guarantees Road ran terrified into the deep dark woods. Trying to keep his superior pose, the spoiled heir agrees and emphasizes he'd never pull a stunt like running away like that. Hearing the lame excuses, instructor Margaret warns with a very serious tone that they are only leaving when the boy gets back. But the group of troublemaker students keeps doubting the rival's survival, betting he's already wolf food by now. Curious about the earlier chaos, another student asks the teacher about the huge energy vortex that popped up in the woods. So she doesn't cause unnecessary panic, the woman lies saying it was just a small natural mana eruption in the area. Confident in his own illusion, Anderson swears the loser got lucky and claims he would have solved the problem easily himself. Right then, the MC appears walking calmly through the trees, leaving the rivals quiet and completely in shock. Relieved about her bodyguard's return, Claire runs to the guy asking if he's really okay after all that danger. The bully noble sweats cold seeing the boy come back totally spotless, struggling to believe his failure theory was wrong. Evaluating the sudden return, the teacher stares at the young master with a much more attentive look full of silent doubts. Not giving a single care about the stares, the guy just says he finished his job and shows the downed monster's claw as proof. Margaret quickly notices the oppressive energy is totally gone, backing up her suspicion that the kid wiped out the source of the evil. Pushing her thoughts aside, she sighs in relief and swears to herself that her only duty there is keeping the students safe. Right after, the mage officially announces the end of that practical training and orders the whole class to head back to the Grand Academy. Far from the school's hustle, heavy footsteps break the absolute silence inside that same dark abandoned cave. A mysterious cloaked figure walks slowly through the hall, stopping right in the center of the destroyed magic circle. Scanning the shards on the stone floor, the man notices instantly that someone completely ruined his arcane formation. He deduces the intruder didn't just defeat the ancestral knight, but also had enough strength to be an imperial grandmaster. Consumed by rage, the shadow sorcerer warns it doesn't matter who interfered, because that meddler's fate will be tragic. By the next morning, the vibe in the Magic Academy halls is totally peaceful again and lit by bright sunshine. Walking down the hallways, the MC reflects on how much teacher Margaret figured out about the truth yesterday. Determined to use the situation to his advantage, the guy sees her suspicion as the perfect chance to demand that valuable artifact. But his thoughts are cut short when he notices a huge crowd of students right in the middle of the main courtyard. The girls at the institute sigh enchanted by Kaya's presence, praising the young prodigy's elegant posture and looks. Biting his lips in pure envy, Anderson watches the scene with total disgust, not understanding what the women see in such a show-off. The Necromancer notices the rival's obvious anger, finding the whole thing pretty curious and even a bit fun to watch. Annoyed, the spoiled heir grumbles the guy only gets hype because he has an older brother holding a high rank in the military. With a nostalgic look, the MC remembers that in his past life he also hated that rich kid student with a burning passion. Cutting the boy's silent thoughts short, the sound of luxury boots tapping on the hallway floor catches the attention of everyone nearby. Keeping his superior posture, Kaya walks past the group and very politely asks them to move out of the way. Feeling his pride hurt, the troublemaker kid raises his voice, wanting to know why he has to give way to the rival. As a response, the young military guy just shoots a cold and extremely intimidating glare that freezes the bully instantly. Fearing the worst, the henchman pulls Anderson's arm, warning him that picking a fight with that powerful family would be a terrible mistake. To cool things down, Teacher Margaret pops up in the hallway, suggesting the tough guys save that energy for combat class. Quickly, Kaya bows his head, offering a sincere apology for the little mix-up, and lets her know he's already on his way out. The preppy noble crosses his arms annoyed, calling the guy a show-off while trying to hide his own nervousness. Taking advantage of the area clearing out, the MC decides to follow the instructor to have an important private chat. Once inside the fancy office, the young master closes the door calmly while the woman sits in her leather armchair. Getting straight to the point, he asks for an official pass to be excused from the combat training happening that afternoon. Very sharp, Margaret quickly deduces the student doesn't want to expose his real strength in front of his classmates. Rode doesn't show any sign of surprise, just mentally confirming the teacher really did catch onto his little secret. She adjusts her glasses playfully and asks if the kid went all the way there just to ask for a simple day off from class. Shifting the focus of the chat, the Necromancer mentions the artifact called Tear of the Fallen and asks if the mage knows about the item. The instructor confirms the ancient object is locked in the school's vault because no teacher ever managed to decipher its immense power. Catching onto the prodigy student's move, the instructor rests her chin on her hands and asks if he's interested in taking the crystal. Without needing to beat around the bush, the guy agrees, stating he really needs to get his hands on that old item. But she throws cold water on the kid, explaining that a simple teacher doesn't have clearance to hand out the vault's treasures. The Necromancer's eyes turn sharp instantly, demanding to know what condition she wants to impose to fix this little bureaucratic issue. Exuding pure confidence, Margaret offers to introduce him to an influential old professor if he shows his true strength in the arena today. The MC lets out a tired sigh, admitting to himself that this woman knows exactly how to play the situation to her advantage. With not many options left to get his summoning material, he takes the deal and agrees to play along with the school act. Later that same day, the students gather in the massive martial arts training gym for their practical class. In the corner of the hall, the young noble Elinor stretches wearing her combat uniform, catching the eyes of everyone around her. Several boys are completely hypnotized by the girl's beauty, whispering about her family's mysterious and respected reputation. Focused on scoring some major points, Kaya approaches the girl oozing with fake confidence, trying to spark up a casual chat like it's no big deal. Flexing his nice guy routine, the military dude politely asks how her grandpa is doing after all this time. Super sweetly, the girl replies that the veteran lord is doing awesome and thanks him for checking in. Suddenly, Elinor's eyes light up like a Christmas tree when she spots someone walking into the gym, completely cutting the convo short. Hyped out of her mind, she totally ditches the arrogant dude and sprints toward her legendary master and savior. Seeing her fangirling hard, Rode puts one finger to his lips, asking for quiet to avoid drawing unwanted attention. Getting the hint instantly, Elinor covers her mouth and apologizes for almost blowing his cover. Left talking to the wall, Kaya is boiling with rage, his ego completely shattered after being ghosted that fast. Shooting daggers at the MC, the prodigy wonders who this absolute nobody is that just stole his spotlight. The heavy vibe gets interrupted by the loud bang of the gym's double doors being busted open. Strutting in like he owns the place, Anderson points right at the military guy, yelling that he's gonna make him pay for earlier's massive L. Acting all high and mighty, Kaya cracks his knuckles and takes the bait, claiming he really needed a punching bag to vent his frustration anyway. Meanwhile, our dark summoner casually chills on the bleachers, but gets quickly bothered by a giant henchman looking for beef. The massive dude brings up how the MC got in the way this morning and orders him to stand up and take his beating right there. The other students start crowding around the mat, noticing the class's biggest troublemakers are about to throw down. Totally clueless, Rode just scratches his head, thinking this whole ego trip is a massive waste of time. Stepping up, the PE coach harshly warns everyone that using magic during these brawls is strictly banned. Wanting to flex his absolute dominance, the arrogant heir thumps his chest, swearing he'll wreck his opponent using just his pure physical stats. Keeping up a super sarcastic vibe, the blonde dude accepts the challenge on the spot, ready to teach the spoiled brat a lesson. Finally, the two rivals step into the main ring and exchange toxic glares, ready to settle the score with their fists. Watching the drama unfold from a distance, the Flora House heir asks her bestie what they should do about this random showdown. The blonde girl sarcastically asks if her friend seriously doubts Anderson's skills, but drops a reality check that Kaya was military trained by his older brother. Flashing a psycho smile, the aggressive noble gets hyped, saying he's been waiting for this and promises to knock his rival's teeth out. On the other side of the ring, the military guy just drops into a flawless fighting stance, looking completely unbothered. Without skipping a beat, the troublemaker charges in full throttle with a ridiculously fast rush. He goes straight for a heavy punch right to the face. But Kaya reads the sloppy attack like an open book and counters in a split second. Showing off insane reflexes, the prodigy dodges and launches a devastating spinning kick that sends the arrogant heir flying into the wall. The girls in the crowd go absolutely wild, showering the guy with hype over his strength and swagger. Hyped up, Anna nudges her friend, pointing out that the champ is gorgeous, rich, and basically a real-life Prince Charming. Totally flattened on the floor, Anderson hears his opponent tell him to just quit, since he's nowhere near his level. The long-haired dude demands an apology right away, promising to let it slide if the loser just walks away. Refusing to take the L, the troublemaker spits on the ground and trash-talks his rival with pure salt as he gets back on his feet. Blinded by irrational rage, he screams and charges in for one last desperate swing. Sighing like he's exhausted by the stupidity, Kaya figures the arrogant kid just dug his own grave. With a perfectly timed strike, the military guy lands a crushing knee that completely knocks the enemy out cold. Watching the chaos from afar, instructor Margaret analyzes the student's performance like a total pro. Ignoring the main event, the MC warns the giant dude that he's about to be on his knees begging too, just like his boss. The giant laughs it off and cracks his knuckles, calling the MC a delusional clown for acting so tough. Telling the kid to never cross their path again, the brute throws a massively heavy punch. As the fist gets closer, Rode thinks to himself that in his past life, he used to solve problems with his phantom army, not his own hands. Dodging with crazy smoothness, the young boss realizes that fighting these amateurs doesn't even require his Mystic Knight skills. Finding the opening, he lands a precise hit right in the guy's gut, asking if the dude finally gets the massive gap in their power levels. Across the gym, Kaya catches a fast, blurry movement out of the corner of his eye. The giant henchman goes flying through the air and crashes brutally into the floor just a few feet away. The impact is so heavy the big guy skids across the floor, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. The prodigy stares in absolute shock, completely ignoring Anderson's knocked-out body in the center of the ring. Up in the stands, the teacher's eyes go wide, super impressed by that sudden burst of power. Totally stunned, the blonde friend stutters, asking her bestie if the school's biggest loser Rode really just did that. Confirming everyone's suspicions, the MC stands there in a flawless fighting stance, giving off a quiet but heavy aura. Sighing in disappointment, the boy complains about how it ended, admitting he held back because he didn't expect the guy to be that weak. This massive flex makes Kaya's face drop instantly, bubbling with pure bitterness. The military kid looks at the flattened giant, feeling like his own ego just took a direct hit. While the class whispers in shock, the fighter stands tall, unleashing a thick, straight-up scary energy. Turning around slowly, he calls out the MC's name, making it crystal clear who his next target is. Looking ridiculously threatening, the class star asks if there was really any need to go that hard during a basic training drill. Keeping his cool, Rode assures him the big guy will bounce back, sarcastically adding that Kaya is in no position to preach about ethics right now. The sarcastic burn points right at Anderson, who's still left crumpled on the floor from the previous match. The roast hits the noble right in his insecurities. He clenches his fists, boiling with rage while his energy floods the room. Anna panics and tells her friend that the useless kid just canceled his own future, since not even the school's top brawler could handle Kaya. The rest of the class starts freaking out too, totally confused as to why the Morris house loser would ever pick this fight. Stressed out for a completely different reason, Elinor covers her mouth, praying to the heavens that her master doesn't completely obliterate the arrogant kid. Up on the bleachers, the teacher smirks and whispers for the boy to show what he's really made of if he wants that ancient artifact. Taken over by rage, Kaya drops into a wild fighting stance, while the pressure around him literally makes the room feel heavy. The instructors recognize his form and panic, realizing he's about to use a classified martial arts move that mimics magic. Crossing the arena with surreal speed, the military kid throws his legendary, devastating iron punch. The crowd's jaws drop at the crazy speed, realizing the prodigy was seriously holding back in his last fight. Without moving one single centimeter, the MC just watches the hit come at him, while the class screams in terror thinking he's about to be sent packing. The brutal collision finally lands, kicking up a massive smoke screen in the gym. But the muffled sound reveals the young boss casually blocked the insane attack using just one of his hands. Completely shook, Kaya starts sweating when he sees his strike, which could crush solid rocks, getting swatted away like it was nothing. With a terrifyingly chill motion, Rode pushes his rival's arm to the side, leaving him wide open. Refusing to take the L, the noble bites his lip, swearing his years of grinding wouldn't be stopped by a total nobody. Looking ridiculously unbothered, the MC asks if using that much power is really cool against a classmate. In the crowd, the students can't believe the flawless block, but quickly cope by saying the military kid held back on purpose. Blinded by the fan club mentality, one student yells that the prodigy is just too nice and would never seriously hurt anyone. Burning with anger, Kaya ignores the peanut gallery and rushes in, screaming the name of his rapid-fire combo. A literal storm of heavy punches rains down on the MC in a frantic attempt to break his guard. Checking his rival's durability, the boy figures a trained fighter shouldn't fold this easily. With that in mind, he tightens his right fist, perfectly calculating his payback. In a fraction of a second, the MC lands a mega-powerful punch that completely breaks the opponent's combo. Checking the damage, he whispers to himself that maybe he can turn the dial up just a little bit. Unable to keep up with the fast-paced action, the students keep hyping Kaya up, thinking he's winning the exchange. Planting his feet on the wooden floor, the MC stops his little warm-up and takes a step back. Brushing the dust off his jacket like a boss, he taunts his opponent, asking if that was really the best he could do. Pure panic hits Kaya, who looks at his own hands, totally confused as to why his ultimate attack didn't even leave a scratch. Switching to an offensive stance, Rode casually mentions he took the combo quietly, and now it's his turn to return the favor. Knowing what was coming, Elinor covers her eyes in secondhand embarrassment, scared of the absolute wrecking her master is about to unleash. Leaping high into the air, the MC sighs about having to leak some of his power, but figures the ancient crystal is worth the hassle. A devastating impact drops from the ceiling like a giant fist, wrapped in thick, shadowy energy. Facing unavoidable doom, the prodigy's eyes bug out, hit with the most genuine existential dread. The crushing blow hits the floor, sending a shockwave that completely clears the training area. Unable to block, Kaya gets tossed like a ragdoll and crashes brutally into the safety barriers. The snobby military kid slides across the arena unconscious, completely wiped out by that one single attack. The heiress and her bestie just stand there frozen, unable to process the absolute fever dream of the school's biggest loser one-shotting the top dog. Laid out on the floor, Kaya realizes the kid surviving the tavern incident was definitely not just luck. Freaking out, Anna sprints to help the military guy, while a classmate copes by claiming their hero held back his full power on purpose. The crowd keeps making excuses, with one fanboy swearing that in a real street fight the prodigy would never lose. Salty as ever, one student demands the MC apologize right now, accusing him of acting classless and deserving his family's abandonment. Looking at the noisy crowd, the MC thinks that in his past life, he would have just sent his phantom crew to silence these annoying NPCs. Having zero patience for the drama, the young boss demands silence with a voice so commanding it terrifies everyone in the room. Instantly, the loudmouths freeze in their tracks, feeling the heavy pressure of his unspoken threat. Keeping his poker face, the young master just stares them down, totally unfazed by the baseless hate. Taking charge, Elinor points her finger angrily at the crowd, asking who they think they are to judge him like that. The rich girl tells them to imagine the damage that Hit would have done to anyone else, telling the weaklings to stop embarrassing themselves. The gym goes dead silent, as the teens fail to understand why the Ashblade heiress is defending the school's famous flop. Ignoring the nosy stares, she grabs Rhodes' hand tightly and calls him master with total respect. She pulls him toward the exit, saying they shouldn't waste one single minute more on these clowns. The two start walking out of the massive training facility, leaving all the drama in the dust. Down on the mat, the military kid clenches his fists, bubbling with rage as he mutters his opponent's name bitterly. The instructor watches them leave, looking super satisfied with how the whole arena spectacle played out. Margaret sharply notes that the boy's power is way past her estimates, deciding to introduce him to the old academic to keep her end of the deal. Walking through the quiet hallways, the girl looks a bit stressed and asks if her outburst caused any trouble. She mentions her family has good business ties with Kaya's relatives and worries about messing up the bag. Sighing deeply, the MC admits he never liked that spoiled brat or his family anyway. Full of confidence, the rich girl promises her clan has his back 100%, even ready to cut ties with the rivals if he wants. Impressed by her loyalty, the MC asks if she's sure making such a drastic move won't backfire on them. She beams with joy, explaining that her grandpa's recovery brought their family's power back to the top, so they aren't scared of any payback. Switching topics super fast, she pulls a dark crystal from her pocket and asks a quick favor from her protector. She hands over the item swirling with dark energy, explaining that someone is planning something shady and asks him to stay sharp, offering her family's backup. Far away, the vibe is incredibly tense in a dark room where the military kid is recovering from his absolute beatdown. The boy's older relative walks in to figure out what happened, while Kaya begs for immediate backup. Wrapped in bandages, the defeated kid bitterly snitches that the Morris house loser humiliated him in front of the heiress. The veteran fighter's eyes fill with pure rage hearing that the girl got close to the enemy, deciding their clan can't let that slide. Staring at a massive skull-decorated shield on the wall, the older brother mutters that he completely understands how serious this is. Giving off a terrifyingly dark energy, the relative mentions a dangerous contact is in town and will pay their target a little visit. Kaya catches the dark tone and asks in shock if he means the legendary mercenary known all over the empire. Getting a nod, the spoiled kid laughs like a maniac, hyped that with a pro on the job, the enemy is going to get totally erased without a trace. While the shady plot brews in the dark, the magic school's hallways go back to being peaceful and bright. The MC answers the call and casually walks into his instructor's office to talk about their secret deal. Margaret praises his surreal gym performance, admitting he genuinely shocked her with that insane flex of power. Playing it cool, the boy asks her to skip the small talk and just focus on handing over the crystal he really needs. The woman explains the item is currently held by a veteran researcher on campus, telling him to tag along and try to get on the guy's good side. They walk side by side down a massive corridor, and the mage warns him the old man is infamous for having a terrible attitude. They finally reach the heavy doors of the prestigious magic research center shared by the 7 allied cities. Inside, Professor Gustav is laser-focused on a massive boiling cauldron full of glowing green mana. The instructor introduces the prodigy, but the grumpy old man snaps at them to be quiet so they don't ruin his delicate experiment. Backing away slowly, Margaret whispers that the crystal he wants belongs solely to this guy who is completely lost in his work. She wishes her student luck in winning the academic over and sneaks out of the smoky room. Checking out the workbench, the MC spots the remains of a small cat and instantly realizes the old man is trying to pull off revival magic. With crazy precision, the veteran scientist drops one single tear of a glowing substance right into his magical mix. The researcher stares intensely at the bowl, anxiously waiting to see if his complex alchemy actually works. Out of nowhere, a harsh blast of green magic explodes from the pot, sending mana flying everywhere. Freaking out at the sudden bang, Margaret yells for her colleague, scared he got seriously hurt in the blast. Covered in black soot, Gustav is super confused, grumbling that the ancient texts promised the life energy would stabilize the fragile soul. The teacher explains the guy recently got obsessed with this field, but complains he hasn't gotten any real results yet. Walking through the wrecked room, Road figures modern society has zero clue about manipulating souls, which explains why there are no dark summoners around. Ignoring his guests, the old man stares at a glowing vial, wondering if it failed because he used too small of a dose. Being totally stubborn, he pours a massive amount of the glowing liquid right onto the magic circle drawn on the desk. The unstable mix triggers an even crazier explosion that actually shatters the giant building's windows. Chilling in the smoke, the young boss realizes that using life force to trap a departed soul is as pointless as trying to set an ice cube on fire. The researcher pulls his hair out in a rage, screaming that he followed the ancient rules perfectly and refuses to take another L. Trying to be a bro and fix the obvious mistake, the MC calmly suggests the guy should just dump those life-heavy liquids. The friendly tip makes Gustav furious. He snaps at the kid to shut up, thinking he only has the guts to speak because he's with the teacher. Looking absolutely disgusted, the researcher accuses the boy of skipping basic theory and being totally clueless about this kind of magic. Turning his back on them, the man tells the kid to come back later and demands zero interruptions during this clutch moment. Standing his ground, the boy points out the animal's life faded a long time ago, meaning the glowing stuff is basically acting like poison. The academic clutches the vial, furious at the disrespect, yelling that the blessed forest liquid can heal anything and refuses to call it poison. Channeling his inner underworld boss, the MC suggests the researcher accept the test subject's passing and add graveyard dirt to the mix for an actual W. Panicking over the student's boldness, Margaret yells at the MC, calling him an idiot for testing the famous scientist right when he's raging. But the kid's harsh words make the old man's eyes go wide, suddenly fascinated by the idea of looking at the experiment from an undead angle. Driven purely by science, Gustav grabs a handful of old graveyard dirt and tosses it straight into the center of the magic matrix. In a flash, the small feline's remains start floating, while green energy wraps around its body. Losing his mind with joy, the academic watches the scene super hyped, barely believing he's finally about to pull it off. The instructor is shook too, watching the subject float and wondering if the impossible spell actually worked. Analyzing it coldly, the young master knows it would have worked if the passing was recent, but notices the animal's essence is already gone. Realizing it's gonna flop again without a little push, Rode decides to step in, stealthily leaking his massive blue energy. The boy's eyes glow intensely with true dark power as he drops an absolute command for the fragile soul to obey. The unholy magic takes over the room, forcing the animal's soul to snap back to the physical world in a glowing vortex. Flexing his absolute authority, the MC demands it wake up, forcing the cat to snap its green eyes open on the spot. The little guy comes back radiating green magic, while the MC figures this temporary fix will last 1 week tops. Completely mind-blown by the surreal event, the veteran scientist stares wide-eyed, unable to process that it actually worked. He grabs the kid by the shoulders, fanboying hard, demanding his name and asking where he learned such next-level stuff. Flexing her ego, Professor Margaret introduces the boy, claiming he's the prodigy student she's always hyping up. Amazed, Gustav showers the kid with praise, saying he just rewrote the laws of magic and calling him an absolute genius. The teacher is totally stunned seeing her grumpy colleague put a random student on such a high pedestal. Not wanting to miss out, the academic asks what else the kid knows, but Rhodes stays humble, saying he just has a different perspective on the undead. Right then, the old man finally remembers why they even came to his lab in the first place. The MC confirms he wants the ancient artifact, staring right at the glowing pendant on the scientist's neck. Holding the precious gem, Gustav says he'll gladly hand it over if the boy agrees to one specific condition. Straight up, he drops the crystal in the kid's hand and demands the boy become his brand new assistant. The academic promises they'll score even crazier magical loot in the future, dreaming of rewriting all magic history with his new prodigy. Hyped about the surprise offer, the MC sees this deal as the perfect cheat code to speedrun his goals. Thinking this is crazy, Margaret tries to step in, reminding him the kid is just a freshman, but gets shut down by her colleague who says she doesn't recognize true talent. Annoyed by the disrespect, the instructor crosses her arms and calls the old man a stubborn boomer. Super chill, Rode accepts the job, saying it would be a massive honor to work with the legendary master. Deep down, the kid is celebrating the W, knowing that getting a VIP title and a private lab will make his school life way easier. Sealing the deal, Gustav hands over a fancy gold key that gives unlimited access to the lab. The scientist happily announces that from now on, the boy is his #1 assistant. Watching them vibe, Margaret is left totally speechless, realizing her student just became her coworker in a matter of seconds. 2 days pass until nightfall wraps around the busy, upscale Crystal Tavern in the capital. Chilling at a corner table, the military guy named Bruce sips his drink, waiting for a very important meetup. A waiter slides in and whispers to the officer that the VIP finally showed up. Weaving through the tables, a scary-looking dude walks across the dimly lit room. The shady guy is dressed in all black with a killer vibe, known in the underworld as the dangerous cleaner Rennie. Bruce flashes a welcoming smile, hyping up the massive rep the mercenary has built over his career. Cutting the small talk, the pro states he only came to this rundown spot out of respect for the officer. Sitting down looking entirely unbothered, Rennie gets straight to business and asks what kind of job the client needs done. The noble officer is fuming on the inside, feeling totally disrespected by the mercenary's arrogant attitude. Swallowing his pride, Bruce slides over a heavy bag of coins as a down payment, promising an even bigger bag when the job is done. Checking out the target, Rennie looks at the profile and laughs, noticing the guy is just some useless kid from a washed-up noble family. The pro questions the client, thinking it's absolute madness to call him from so far away just to cancel a random student. Bruce tries to justify the hit, saying it's also a revenge favor for his little brother Kaya. Thinking the excuse is trash, the mercenary grumbles that a spoiled brat doesn't have enough pull to make him do the dirty work. But then the officer drops the juicy detail that the target managed to get super cozy with the Ashblade heiress. Hearing that top-tier family name instantly grabs the pro's attention, making him realize the actual weight of the sketchy job. Changing his tune, Rennie takes the gig as a favor, but taxes him a final payout of 5,000 gold coins for the hassle. The client slams his fist on the table, agreeing to the crazy price, only caring that the kid gets permanently erased without a trace. Bruce demands absolute zero leaks to protect his family's rep, and gets a guarantee that pros never out their clients. Flashing a wicked grin, the cleaner swears on his life that his traps never fail. Far away, a salty Kaya waits anxiously in the dark, betting everything that tonight is his rival's last night on Earth. Meanwhile, the brutal pro scopes out the city from a dark rooftop, acting like a bird of prey. Wearing his mask, he reviews the intel and confirms the kid walks this exact same quiet route every day. Rennie slides stealthily down the narrow alley, setting up the ultimate ambush for the clueless target coming his way. Strolling calmly down the empty street, the young master complains about how the old man gave him too much homework, slowing down his summons upgrades. Suddenly, Rhodes stops walking, feeling a badly hidden hostile energy right behind him. Reading the mana, the kid figures the attacker as a mid-tier archmage, slightly stronger than his own teacher. The pro drops heavily onto the cobblestones, blocking every escape route in the tight alley. No talking go fast, shadowy blade is thrown violently right at the boy. Dodging the strike effortlessly, the MC guesses this is the same guy who messed with the magic circle in the forest. Ready to wrap this up, the kid warns he's going to beat the answers out of the cocky intruder. Rennie mocks the target's chill vibe, calling him smart for already picking out his own grave. That trash talk makes the young boss shoot a terrifyingly cold glare right over his shoulder. The weight of that intense stare catches the pro off guard, not expecting such heavy boss energy from a random student. Rushing through the air with rage, the cleaner declares it's game over as he charges up his ultimate move. Coating his blade in pure dark magic, he triggers his signature move aimed directly at the kid. The sword comes down with monstrous pressure, slicing the night air in a clean, ruthless strike. A huge crash echoes through the alley as drops of red hit the cold floor. Wrapped in a demonic aura, Rhodes catches the enemy's blade with his bare hands and demands to know who sent him. Absolute panic takes over Rennie, freezing him in place as he realizes his best move just got blocked flawlessly by an unarmed kid. Completely shook, the criminal lets go of his sword so he doesn't get swallowed by the kid's suffocating energy. He jumps back fast, trying to put as much distance as possible between him and the newly awakened monster. Sweating bullets, the pro recalculates the enemy's power and decides running away is his only option. Drops fall fast from his busted hand as he channels all his mana into a top-tier escape skill. In a desperate move, Rennie turns into liquid shadow and slides quickly across the dark street. Watching the pathetic escape, the MC coldly states he knows plenty of good tricks to make someone spill the tea. Sparks of dark energy start violently popping off all around the young master. Answering the silent call, the massive phantom minion appears behind his boss, ready for the night hunt. The runner looks back and freezes in pure terror when he sees the scary blue flame beast right on his heels. Cutting through the air with surreal speed, the skeleton soldier catches his prey in a fraction of a second. A crushing blow hits the pro's back, canceling his escape skill and pulling a horrible scream out of him. Pinned on the ground, Rennie feels the monster's freezing blade on his neck, while the MC walks up asking if he's ready to talk. Coughing up red, the cleaner tries to act tough and tells the kid to back off, claiming his VIP backers will bring absolute hell down on him. Totally ignoring the useless threat, Rhodes notes the guy's stubbornness and says he brought this on himself. Leaking his dark energy, the young boss reaches out, ready to shatter the pro's mind and rip the info out by force. Using his banned mind echo magic, the MC hacks into the guy's brain to get the facts straight from the source. The memory clearly shows Officer Bruce ordering the hit for his little bro and offering a massive bag for the job. Judging his enemy's audacity, the MC coldly decides the Shadowthorn house just signed their own eviction notice. Totally broken, the pro panics and begs for mercy, warning that the client will seek crazy revenge if he gets hurt. The MC promises there's nothing to worry about, since the rival family is about to be completely wiped off the map anyway. Flashing a creepy smile, the boy says an Archmage's essence will be the perfect snack to buff up his squad. A massive burst of blue energy swallows the alley as the absolute boss summons his giant bone monster. Terrified by the colossal beast screaming in his face, the pro backs up sweating cold, begging it to stay away. Showing absolutely zero mercy, the dark minion lunges and eliminates the mercenary on the spot, wrapping up the problem for good. The monster absorbs all the enemy's life force, glowing brightly as it enjoys the huge power-up. With the street quiet again, Road figures the enemies have major pull in the area and decides to wait for the perfect time to strike back. Meanwhile, at the fancy Crystal Tavern, Bruce sips his drink, prematurely celebrating the success of his sneak attack. Face red from the drinks, the officer bets his life the pro already finished the job and mocks the kid's supposed weakness. Hyped about the W, he tells his lackey he's gonna send out personal invites to the whole class for a massive party tomorrow. Time flies and the next morning arrives, dropping weird party invites for the elite students. Holding the fancy letter, Elinor sighs in confusion, trying to figure out why the military kid suddenly decided to throw a random feast. She looks up and spots the familiar silhouette of her glorious master walking down the bright hall. Instantly her bad mood vanishes, and she flashes a glowing smile, calling him over super hyped. Noticing her stress, the MC casually asks if it has something to do with the paper she's holding. She explains that the arrogant enemy invited the whole class to a huge party with zero context. The MC acts like he doesn't care, while the girl swears she hates the guy and couldn't care less about his event. Smirking confidently, the boy advises his partner to go, admitting he already knows exactly what they're celebrating. Feeling awkward, Elinor complains that the snobby kid didn't even have the decency to send her master an invite. The noble girl thinks the whole thing is childish, guessing the enemy is just acting salty after getting completely wrecked in the gym. Evening rolls around, and the starry night lights up the massive hall booked for the elite party. At the door of the fancy venue, security blocks the guests, demanding to see official invites for entry. Standing her ground, Elinor flashes her pass, flexing her family's heavy title and warning them the boy is with her. The bouncer hesitates for a second, clearly unsure how to handle the kid's unwanted presence. Quickly, a second staff member steps up and whispers something important to the bouncer, blocking the way. Flipping his attitude instantly, the guy slaps on a fake smile and lets the noble girl and her special +1 inside. Walking the red carpet, the young master thanks her for the carry, while she apologizes for the drama at the door. Away from the loud music, it's dead quiet in a VIP room at the back of the huge, fancy party hall. Fixing his tie in the mirror, Bruce listens to his lackey's stressful report that the pro-mercenary ghosted them without a trace. Panicking about the no-show, the subordinate asks if there's any chance the famous pro actually fumbled the bag. The officer loses his mind on the spot, telling the servant to shut it and claiming the elite pro would never lose to a student. Hiding his own anxiety, the boss orders them to get the final payout ready immediately, trusting his guy will walk in any second. Back in the main hall, the vibe is super chill, with the rich kids chatting and having a great time. Walking through the crowd, Bruce smiles evilly, thinking that with the kid gone, nobody can stop his brother's rise to the top. Nearby, some students gossip about the pop-up party, guessing the hosts must have pulled off something huge to celebrate. The Ashblade heiress senses an annoying vibe and turns her head, looking bothered. The officer parks himself right next to the girl, practically oozing bad intentions. Trying to use his fake riz, the noble raises his glass and asks her to grab a drink with him. Elinor shuts him down instantly, keeping a straight face and rejecting his fake friendliness on the spot. Before Bruce can push it, an unmistakable voice echoes from the shadows behind him, grabbing the girl's attention to propose a toast. The host's smile drops instantly, and he starts sweating cold as he recognizes the terrifying voice of the guy who was supposed to be gone. Holding his glass with pure class, the MC steps into the light with a cynical smirk, making the military guy scream his name in absolute panic. The jump scare is so bad the host trips over his own feet and crashes to the floor, spilling his drink everywhere. Shaking like a leaf, the Lord points at the kid, desperately asking if he's a human or a ghost. Walking up calmly with crushing boss energy, the MC throws the question right back at him with heavy sarcasm. Totally terrified, the officer stammers that the target surviving is impossible and demands to know where the mercenary is. Playing dumb, Road tilts his head and asks if he means the thug who tried to jump him on the road. Without saying another word, the kid tosses a metal object that lands with a heavy clank on the fancy floor. Pure terror locks the noble's face as he recognizes the famous pro's bloody dagger, realizing the absolute worst just happened. Freaking out, the military guy screams at the top of his lungs, begging to know what the nobody did to the veteran pro. A dark, demonic energy leaks from behind the kid, making it obvious the pro met a ridiculously brutal end. Catching the accidental slip-up, Elinor gets serious, mentioning that title belongs to a super dangerous wanted hitman. The noble girl glares daggers at the party host, demanding he explain his ties to street trash right now. Sweating cold in front of the crowd, the military guy throws his hands up, stuttering that this is all just a massive misunderstanding. Furious, the girl tells him to his face that his weak lies aren't fooling anyone, disgusted by how low the rival house stooped. Panicking over losing his connection, the officer tries to explain himself, swearing he can break down the whole context about the MC. Cutting the act short instantly, Elinor raises her voice and tells the noble to save his breath. Looking completely disgusted, she calls him out, saying the surprise party was literally just to celebrate her protector's downfall and refuses to hear his excuses. Burning with rage over the betrayal, the noble girl officially announces the end of all diplomatic ties between her powerhouse clan and his trash family. The military guy grinds his teeth in blind rage, blaming the MC for completely ruining his family's genius master plan. Not giving a single care about the loser's tantrum, the girl turns around and tells her master they're leaving this toxic place. The crowd goes into shock hearing Elinor's family name, mind blown that a massive alliance just crumbled because of the famous flop. Watching from a distance, the kid's ex-fiancé looks down, totally stunned, realizing this overpowered guy looks nothing like the loser she used to know. Ditching the drama, the two walk calmly through the estate's beautiful gardens, enjoying the night breeze. The heiress is still fuming at the enemy's audacity, pointing out those petty losers have no idea about the monstrous power her master actually holds. Reading the room, Road figures the pro was way too skilled to just be taking orders from a salty student, guessing there's a bigger plot happening. The MC coldly assumes taking him out was just a bonus, and the real target of the whole trap was the Ashblade family itself. Backing the theory, the girl laughs at how dumb the enemies are for thinking they could snatch her family's wealth just because her grandpa was sick. Flashing a super grateful smile, Elinor confirms the old man is healthier than ever and puts the entire clan at the boy's disposal. With his eyes glowing a terrifying, vibrant blue, the supreme boss accepts the offer and declares the rival house needs to be deleted from existence. Far away, the massive Shadowthorn mansion sits quietly in the dark, totally clueless about the absolute disaster heading their way. Away from the party noise, Kaya hides in his dark dorm, clutching a communication device while his brother asks for an update. Gritting his teeth in pure disappointment, the military kid reports that the famous pro completely fumbled the mission. Holding his skull shield, the older relative refuses to cope with the news, reminding him he handpicked the pro and no veteran mage could survive that ambush. But the spoiled kid starts panicking and confirms it's the harsh truth, revealing the Ashblade family just cut all ties with them thanks to the MC stepping in. The call goes dead silent for a minute, until the veteran fighter realizes how bad they messed up and promises to pull up to the city right away. This sudden update makes the defeated student's eyes go wide with shock. Gripping the crystal tight, Kaya asks with stars in his eyes if his brother is really planning to come home right now. With his eyes glowing intense red from rage, the fighter confirms it and swears the nobody isn't making it out alive this time. 2 days pass by fast after the elite drama, bringing a bright morning to the halls of the prestigious Magic Academy. Inside the secret research lab, the vibe is strictly business as usual. Road quietly thinks about the lack of payback, finding it weird that Kaya took the L without whining and wondering what the ops are plotting in the dark. Interrupting his thoughts, academic Gustav turns to the duo and happily announces they showed up at the perfect time for a road trip. Teacher Margaret finds the rush weird and asks where they're going. The scientist says recent tests drained their stash and he needs to re-up at the magic market. The young prodigy repeats the place's name, curious, and the instructor explains it's an exclusive trading hub where only crazy, powerful, and rich people can get in. Smiling like a proud mom, she points out this is the perfect chance for the new assistant to level up his game by shadowing the old academic. Tagging along, the MC admits to himself he never even heard of this sketchy VIP market in his past life. Soon enough, the trio hops into a carriage that speeds down the roads toward the outskirts of the school. The ride ends at the busy city of Nate, a massive northern trade hub where heavyweight merchants gather to sell anything money can buy. The three walk through streets packed with booths and buyers hunting for rare loot from all over the empire. Skipping the basic stalls, they walk with purpose straight toward a way more intimidating building. At the door of the massive, upscale shop, geared-up guards keep the VIP area on lockdown. The bouncers step aside instantly and warmly welcome the scientist, who walks up the stairs looking totally at home. While the guards joke about the old man being irregular, Road is laser-focused on finding the upgrade mats he needs for his supreme minion. Inside the main room, a guy in a suit walks up with a polite smile, introducing himself as the shift manager. Having zero patience for customer service talk, Gustav tells the guy to skip the intro and take him straight to the restricted section, ignoring the pleasantries. Feeling the heat from the strict VIP, the manager sweats cold and agrees on the spot, asking them to follow his lead. The trio enters the dimly lit hidden hallways of the VIP zone, being told to make themselves completely at home in the private lounge. Trying to hype up the inventory, the manager starts showing off some products, but the scientist cuts him off, saying those items are trash. Demanding top-tier stuff, the old boss asks for materials overflowing with life force and items linked to the afterlife, like old grave dirt. The manager follows orders and quickly hands over a swamp reptile bone for the kid to check out, warning it's rare but nothing crazy. Disappointed by the options, the MC realizes the market's hype is totally fake, since they don't have anything actually game-changing. In his eyes, true top-tier loot needs enough energy to pull off Miraclest kind of relic that starts literal wars. Just then, a loud argument catches the teacher and the kid's attention, with some guy accusing the old academic of trying to steal his find. Watching the two boomers fight over a green rock, Margaret explains that's Ball, a researcher from a rival school who's always beefing with Gustav over materials. The center of the crazy argument is a glowing rock that's supposedly a super valuable life crystal. But the MC's eyes glow, exposing the hidden truth, and he easily realizes it's just a basic wind ore used by elves for scams. Burning with spite, Rhodes' boss accuses the jealous old man of never finding his own ingredients and trying to steal his picks. Flashing an evil grin, Ball reminds him the shop's rule is first come, first served, and mocks him that it ain't stealing if the cash hasn't dropped yet. The disrespect makes Gustav point his finger right in the enemy's face, inches away from losing his cool in the middle of the store. Stepping into the drama, the new assistant calls his boss and super calmly drops the bomb that the prized rock is a total fake, just a dressed-up wind stone. The academic's eyes bug out, totally spooked by the news, and he immediately asks if his prodigy is 100% sure about this wild claim. Keeping his poker face and piercing stare, the boy confirms his read with absolutely zero doubt. Trusting his genius assistant, Gustav flips his attitude and declares that rock isn't worth anywhere near the asking price, deciding to let the thirsty rival have it. Oozing confidence, he calls the manager over and demands he publicly announce who the fake life crystal belongs to. The suit-wearing guy sweats bullets over the drama and stutters, confirming the store policy hands the item over to whoever pays first. Celebrating his early W, Ball holds up the item and clowns his rival, announcing the transaction is done and the stone is his. Instead of looking salty, Gustav lets out a genuine laugh and claims he's incredibly happy with how the deal turned out. The weird flex leaves the enemy and the manager completely lost, failing to understand why he's so hyped about taking it. Suspicious, the rival scientist demands to know what's up, wondering why on earth the guy is smiling after getting played. Pushing up his glasses like an absolute boss, Gustav congratulates the enemy for dropping 3,000 gold coins on a useless piece of wind trash. The store manager is left completely shook by the heavy accusation against their inventory. Ball bursts out laughing, calling his rival delusional, swearing he's just making stuff up because he can't cope with losing. Showing off the gem's bright glow, the rival tells him to feel the crazy pressure coming off it, swearing no decent mage would mistake it for garbage. Trying to save the shop's rep, the sweating manager steps in and asks Gustav to stop capping, promising their pros double-check every life crystal they sell. The lab boss just keeps his sarcastic smirk, not backing down 1 single centimeter. Taking control of the room, Rhodes steps up looking insanely chill and doubles down that the enemy's rock is unquestionably a scam. The vibe gets super heavy as the rock's defenders shoot furious glares right at the kid. Furious at having his IQ questioned by some random teen, the rival academic demands to know who the kid thinks he is. The manager raises his voice too, telling the boy to watch his mouth, warning that tagging along with a VIP doesn't give him a pass to trash the store. Backing his prodigy, Gustav puffs his chest and announces Rode is his right-hand man, swearing the kid's magic IQ is higher than his own, and tells the enemy to shut it. Laughing like a villain, Ball accuses his rival of finally losing his marbles for handing the assistant job to a mere student. The jealous boomer shoves the glowing rock at the kid and challenges him to explain where that massive aura is coming from if it's fake, daring him to prove it. The stone keeps shining bright in the enemy's hands, overflowing with the energy that fooled everyone in the room. Completely owning the moment, the MC explains the glow is real, but it's just a high-tier elf illusion slapped on a basic rock, noting that draining the energy will expose the truth. Without missing a beat, the young master asks if the shop still has that old grave dirt, promising a tiny pinch is enough to eat the gem's magic and break the illusion. Jumping on the idea to end the beef quickly, the manager confirms they have it and yells for staff to bring the dirt out right now. Seconds later, a silver tray loaded with the dark dirt the kid asked for is carefully set on the counter. With a super chill hand gesture, Rhodes suggests they drop the fake gem in the sand and wait 1 minute for the final verdict. Burning with spite, the rival academic accepts the dare, but demands that if the rock is real, Gustav and his genius assistant must apologize publicly for the whole circus. Without blinking, the guy tosses the glowing gem right onto the pile of ancient dirt to prove his point. The instant contact triggers a magical reaction, making the green light clash with the dirt's dark energy. Flashing a crazy smile, the old man stares at the glow and celebrates, claiming the item's life aura is still just as strong. Watching closely, the boy's boss sweats cold and locks his eyes, waiting to see how this risky gamble plays out. On the other side of the room, instructor Margaret watches everything, looking super stressed by the crazy tension. Terrified of a massive embarrassment, the mage whispers to the kid asking if he's actually sure, warning that taking an L here would completely destroy the veteran scientist's ego. Keeping his absolute cool, Rode tells the teacher not to sweat the test. Ball talks back with pure arrogance, claiming the kid's radar is garbage and that not even elves could fake something this high quality. Master Gustav sweats cold watching the scene, wondering how on earth this could happen. The crystal on the grave dirt starts reacting, leaking its green energy into the room. Shocked by the test results, Margaret realizes the artifact was indeed a fake and asks who the heck appraised it. The store manager looks down, realizing the useless rock was just sold for a ridiculous 3,000 gold coins. Completely humiliated by the reveal, Ball boils with pure hate, staring at the outcome on the counter. He points his finger furiously and accuses the store staff of being a bunch of scammers trying to sell trash. Milking the moment, Gustav bursts out laughing and totally clowns on the loser. The old vulture can't handle the embarrassment and turns his back, storming out of the store as fast as possible. Right before vanishing out the door, the rival scientist swears this little feud is far from over. Consumed by the bitter L, Ball walks the streets swearing to get his revenge on the enemy. Inside the VIP room, Rhodes' master is still cracking up, celebrating the amazing feeling of finally making his rival look like a clown. He gives his student a big bro hug, thanking him for the carry, and promises the school will pay for any item the kid wants from the store. Panicking about losing such a huge VIP, the manager sweats cold and begs for forgiveness, making excuses that it was just a random mistake. Ignoring the weak apology, Gustav just turns around and walks back into the lounge with his assistant. The manager is left behind, entirely confused about how such a massive fail slipped past the shop's pros. Far away, the appraiser who cleared the fake rock watches the city streets from his shady office window. He grinds his teeth with pure rage, seeing that the smart Alec kid completely wrecked his massive scam operation. The scammer realizes the annoying kid also managed to offend the powerful rival researcher during the shouting match. Analyzing the board, the criminal figures he can use that old grudge to get the brat eliminated without getting his own hands dirty. Meanwhile, Ball keeps storming through the crowded streets, hurting over the massive loss of 3,000 gold coins. The shame of getting outplayed by a mere student boils the old man's blood, knowing he's about to become a walking meme at his school. Suddenly, a guy's voice calls out the researcher's title, snapping him out of his toxic thoughts. The scammer in disguise walks up to the academic, acting super helpful to kick off his trap. Noticing the uniform, Ball sharply asks what a basic store clerk could possibly want with him right now. The scammer tells him to chill and promises the store is also shook by the fake sale, claiming they are looking into it. Playing mysterious, the fraud drops a rumor that the guy in charge of the crystal had been meeting secretly with Gustav's assistant. The old academic is mind-blown hearing about this supposed conspiracy involving his biggest hater. He stares the worker down, demanding to know if the whole VIP room drama was a set-up plan just to play him. Staying in character, the scammer pretends he doesn't want to jump to conclusions, saying he's just sharing what he heard around the shop. But he adds fuel to the fire, pointing out how weird it was for a random student to be so absolutely sure the perfect crystal was a fake. The bait works perfectly, and the rival researcher starts laughing hysterically in the middle of the square. Ball connects the fake dots and assumes the kid could only know about the scam if he actively helped set the trap. Sold on the lie, the old man asks why the worker came to leak this top-secret intel directly to him. The criminal covers his tracks, arguing that this kind of scandal would completely nuke the store's massive profits in the city. The academic buys the logic and figures they both now share the same goal of punishing the guys behind the scam. Happy that his plan worked, the appraiser flashes a dark smile, agreeing with his new revenge buddy. Ball grips his robes, promising that Master Gustav and his nosy student are going to pay a heavy price for the humiliation. Taken over by bitterness, he swears to eliminate the duo to show what happens when you try to make the great Ball look like a joke. Having planted the seed of chaos, the fake clerk turns his back and sneaks away quietly through the city streets. An evil smirk takes over the scammer's face, knowing all he has to do now is sit back and watch his enemies destroy each other. While the deadly plot cooks, the group of nerds keeps casually checking out the different booths at the open market. Standing in front of a basic merchant's blanket, Gustav leans down to check the loot spread out on the stone floor. The old guy picks up a black volcano rock and complains it's completely useless for his life research. He also tosses a dead flower in a pot, claiming that kind of rotting plant has absolutely zero good stats. Standing next to his boss, Rode sighs, losing hope that he'll find anything to buff his monster here. But suddenly, the young master feels a massive pulse of life energy coming from super close by. The kid spots a rough red stone, instantly recognizing it's a rare drop formed in extreme energy zones. He notices the fossilized rock is hiding a crazy amount of life power under its basic rocky shell. Before grabbing it, the MC spots something even more interesting buried right in the corner of the same stall. A small beast's skull has a corrupted ore jammed right into the main bone. The MC realizes the dark energy was being masked by the bone structure, admitting he'd never have noticed it if he wasn't the ultimate boss of the underworld. Playing it super cool, the boy grabs the skull and casually asks how much these old rocks cost to use as desk weights in his lab. The basic merchant laughs loud and explains he dug that up in an abandoned graveyard, admitting the pros called it all trash. Completely blind to the hidden value, Gustav watches the kid hold a random rock, while the seller asks for a dirt cheap 5 silver coins each. Taking advantage of the steal, the young prodigy smiles happily and says he'll buy the whole stash for 50 coins. The seller agrees on the spot, super hyped to get any kind of bag for those heavy items. The transaction wraps up fast, and the boy pockets his new hidden treasures without catching any weird looks. Watching this sad display, Professor Margaret complains, frustrated that they're really going home without buying anything actually useful. As soon as they walk away from the market, Rode tosses the red rock to his boss, dropping the bombshell that it's actually a massive battery of life force. The academic catches the rough item looking totally confused, accusing the kid of having zero appraisal skills for thinking this junk is important. Staying chill, the assistant patiently explains that the bloodwood ended up turning to stone because it's super ancient. Curious about the theory, Gustav decides to run a deep scan on the piece to find out the truth once and for all. Unleashing his magic, the veteran researcher gets a massive jump scare when he sees the rock glowing super bright in his hands. Teacher Margaret's eyes go wide in shock, recognizing the pure life energy pouring out of the useless rock. The red glow proves the kid was 100% right, confirming the material is actually a priceless artifact for their studies. While the teachers are hyped about the loot, the MC locks eyes on the corrupted rock he saved for himself. With a hyper-focused stare, the boy is absolutely sure that Dark Splinter is going to skyrocket his undead army stats. Later that night, things are dead quiet in the empty fields and halls of the Dark Summoner's temporary fancy spot. In the dark room, Rode inspects his 2 evil rocks and calculates exactly how huge of a power spike they'll trigger. Not wasting hours on slow crafting, he tosses the dark ores straight to his supreme minion. The young master drops an absolute command for the warrior to consume it all and take back the original power it had when it was alive. The loyal flame soldier takes the order with honor and crushes the crystals using just its massive hands. Instantly, a monstrous wave of blue, pure dark magic wraps around the entity in a terrifying tornado of total evolution. The concentrated blue energy forms a literal cocoon around the minion, while the MC casually watches the process. Chugging all that dark power, the entity's ancient weapon starts cracking and glowing with insane strength. With a massive boom, the stacked energy explodes brutally, shattering the protective shell in one single move. The majestic warrior steps out of the shadows looking way more tanky and drops to one knee instantly, calling out the boss's name. Super hyped, the kid praises the monster's new form and is shocked to see it actually hit the prestigious advanced tier. Pulling the red rock from his jacket, the young boss announces it's his turn to level up. Without hesitating, he crushes the piece of blood wood, squeezing out all the pure life force trapped inside. A colossal wave of mana wraps around the boy, funneling the energy straight into his fragile body. Staring at the tiny leftover splinter, the Dark Summoner thinks about his minion's magic growth and the sheer potential of that top-tier loot. With a determined look and wrapped in heavy sparks, he celebrates effortlessly hitting the rank of an initiate mage. Now packing an advanced soldier on his roster, Road realizes his total power just took a massive leap in one single night. The boy smiles, oozing confidence, admitting he can finally pull off strats that used to be impossible for him. Far away, the daylight hits the fancy Shadowthorn mansion the day after the massive drama at the night party. Heavy footsteps echo through the yard as a high-ranking VIP steps out of a transport right out front. Keeping a crazy stiff posture, the military guy Bruce walks up the carpet ready to fix the mess. Welcoming his family member at the door, Kaya flashes a super relieved smile and celebrates his older bro's surprise return. The officer replies coldly that he already heard about the L involving Road and the Ashblade heiress cutting them off. Embarrassed by his own fumble, the spoiled student looks away, not having a solid excuse to drop. Looking defeated, he complains the enemy showed zero mercy in the fight and gets stressed over the hired mercenary ghosting them. The veteran soldier's face shifts, consumed by quiet rage, wondering when exactly such a massive talent popped up out of nowhere. Taken over by bitterness, the noble tightens his gloved hand, swearing the kid's real identity doesn't matter at all. Boiling with spite, he decides the obstacle has to be deleted permanently, since his bloodline is destined to control this whole zone. Taking up a ton of space on the couch, the officer yells for his most dangerous and loyal lackey to step up. A guy in sharp clothes walks into the fancy room, giving off the crushing pressure of an elite veteran cleaner. Introducing his backup, the Lord flexes that Lex is at the top of the magic food chain and has a wild track record of hardcore missions. Flashing a look full of lethal intent, the new guy does a scary salute, greeting the clan's youngest brother. The kid swallows hard, feeling the heavy energy, instantly realizing this guy has taken out plenty of targets across the empire. Spinning small knives through his fingers with crazy skill, the ruthless pro calmly asks for the exact details about the target. Smiling confidently, the boss claims it'll be a walk in the park and swears he's already mapped out the perfect play. With the deadly plot set, he tosses a stack of files onto the wooden desk to explain the gig. Reading the docs, the noble finds it wild that the target randomly became the legendary researcher Gustav's official assistant. He notes the massive weight of the scientist's name and figures it would be incredibly stupid to try a frontal assault inside the magic school. Weighing the risks, the noble suggests the only viable strat is to drag the enemy out onto their home turf. The little brother points his finger instantly, suggesting they bait the rival along with the allied family to the exact same party. With a totally psycho look in his eyes, Kaya suggests faking an apology invite so they can take out the enemy's old boss in the exact same ambush. The insane idea gets the military guy hyped, admitting that wiping out every obstacle in one single move would be absolute perfection. Flashing an evil smile, the fighter greenlights the strat and warns they need to set the trap up with flawless precision. Hanging out in the dark room, the villains celebrate the chance to wipe their rivals off the map and take control of the North Zone for good. As the deadly plot takes shape, a bright morning lights up the massive mansion of the heavy-hitting Ashblade family. Chilling in her office, the young heiress spots the sketchy mail and asks what her grandpa is reading, super curious. Fixing his glasses, the veteran leader says he got an apology letter offering a seriously huge payout in assets as payback. Knowing how the ops operate, Elinor complains that the military kid is a massive fake and would never actually ask for forgiveness like that. The girl slams the desk full of confidence, claiming this sudden nice guy routine definitely has some shady motive behind it. The old man agrees the payout is just bait and asks his granddaughter to get the great lord's take on the situation. Trusting the young master's big brain, the student takes the quest instantly and promises to return with a final answer ASAP. Checking out the fancy gold paper, the MC finds it super sus that the ops are in such a rush to hand over a crazy 20% of their assets. Flashing a wicked smirk, he rates the whole setup as trash and figures the group's arrogance is borderline brain-dead. With his eyes glowing a scary shade, the Dark Summoner decides to accept the invite, seeing it as the perfect chance to delete the rival house for good. Time flies until the next night, when an ultra-luxurious carriage waits patiently at the main estate's gates. The loyal guard smiles and greets the kid, saying Master Ashblade sent him with the ride to pick him up. Fixing his fancy tie, Road calmly states it's finally time to crash this infamous dinner party. Walking next to the boy, the old patriarch admits he feels completely safe knowing the literal boss of the afterlife is rolling with him. Fixing his glasses like a boss, Ignia promises he'll make the plotters regret ever trying to play him. The squad finally reaches the heavy iron doors of the enemy's castle, which is completely surrounded by hired muscle. Welcoming the VIPs, the officer fakes being polite and begs for forgiveness for the mistakes, asking them to enjoy the party with open arms. Dropping a dramatic bow, the house boss hides his dark plans behind a ridiculous, entirely fake mask. Lost in his own delusion, the villain celebrates in his head, absolutely sure nobody is making it out of his magic barrier and Lex's blade alive. The fighter's sick brain is already planning to use a linner as a trophy and toss the MC's remains to the guard dogs. Catching the killing intent leaking everywhere, Road sighs, disappointed that the hyped-up host is actually terrible at acting. The guests are quickly escorted to a massive, fancy dining table, where the coward greets them again with crazy levels of fake nice. Raising his glass for a hypocritical toast, Bruce asks them to accept his apology for his relative's stupidity and suggests they leave the beef in the past. Ignoring the disgusting lie, the young master acts like a gentleman and pulls out the chair so his ally can sit comfortably. Scanning the room quietly, the MC spots 7 magic nodes hidden around, forming a hardcore anti-magic shield. Thinking the whole setup is pretty cute, the boy chills in his seat and tells the heiress to enjoy the menu without stressing. Trusting her savior's call, the girl flashes a sweet smile and plays along with the vibe of this life-filled dinner. The meal goes on with crazy heavy tension, while everyone shares the huge luxury table lit by silver candle flames. Holding his expensive drink, the old patriarch cuts the small talk and demands they hand over the paperwork for the industry shares. The party host lets out a nervous little laugh, sweating bullets and trying to keep up his friendly host act in front of the impatient guests. Flashing a wicked grin, the military guy acts sarcastic, saying he almost forgot the best part of their family alliance deal. Without wasting another second, the villain claps his hands, pulling the trigger to start the bloodbath in the room. Dressed as a waiter, the mercenary walks up carrying the contract on a tray, while Bruce claims it just needs an official signature. Totally unaware of the death trap, the old patriarch slowly reaches out, ready to grab the fake alliance papers. Suddenly, a sharp blade flies out from under the fake papers at blazing speed in a brutal, silent, and entirely savage strike. Showing his true colors, the criminal screams that this is the end of the line and orders the target to drop with a dirty sneak attack. The blade slices the air straight toward the leader's face, but he stays perfectly calm, holding his glass while he watches the hit come in. A scary crash echoes through the room when the fake waiter's strike hits a hidden magic shield, leaving the mercenary totally shook that his attack got blocked so easily. Right then, the veteran leader flexes his true power, dropping a destructive pressure and taking absolute control of the high-risk situation. Sweating cold, the pro measures the insane power in the room and realizes the old man is 100% healed and back to his prime advanced magic rank. The veteran fighter lets out a genuine laugh, confirming he's fully recovered and way stronger, taking the chance to roast the host for finally showing his cowardly ambitions. Freaking out because his master plan just crumbled, Bruce realizes there's no going back and furiously orders his 2 elite subordinates to jump the guests right now. Following orders instantly, the 2 mercenaries blast through the fancy room's air in a super-fast, synchronized rush at the patriarch. A relentless storm of heavy hits rains down on the old man, but he blocks every single strike with surreal ease, proving his massive advantage in the fight. Confident in his tank stats, the veteran leader flashes a challenger's smirk and tells the enemies to throw their entire kit at his shield. Gathering a storm of bright lightning around his body, he promises to hand out a legendary beating to these disrespectful kids. Suddenly, a massive glowing magic circle turns on right under the patriarch's shoes, making his eyes bug out when he realizes it's a mana-canceling trap. The golden light vanishes from his hands in a flash, leaving the fighter stunned that his magic flow got completely shut down by the floor trap. Jumping on the opening, the military guy flashes a psycho smile and brags that he dropped a bag on this setup, demanding the old man accept his defeat and hand over the family deeds. Pure panic hits Elinor. She screams for her grandpa, completely terrified seeing him left defenseless right in the middle of enemy territory. Even without magic, the patriarch manages to dodge a piercing stab, making the mercenary complain angrily about the old man's crazy speed. Seeing the situation going south fast, Ignia turns his head, sweating nervously, and begs his granddaughter to run away right now with her overpowered master. Gripping her blade with shaking hands, the girl totally rejects the idea of abandoning her only family left in the world. With tears streaming down her face, Elinor promises to stall the enemies and begs the MC to run, ready to fight to the bitter end next to the old man. Before the girl does something reckless, the young master calmly reaches out and gently pushes his partner's sword down. Keeping his usual rock-solid posture, he just asks the girl to step back a bit and let him solo the rest of this fight. Blinded by arrogance, the mercenary charges in fiercely, warning that the zone blocks all magic and declaring the nosy kid will meet his end right here too. Showing zero fear, Rode shoots back an insanely cold and tactical glare, leaving the military kid shook by that terrifying level of chill. Mid-charge, the mercenary recognizes the target's face and furiously realizes this is the exact kid who wiped out his old crewmate. Flashing a psycho smile, the criminal dumps all his power into his knife, swearing to get payback for his fallen bro right here. A metal clang rings through the fancy room as the dark summoner casually parries the crushing hit using just his bare hands. The clash makes the mercenary stumble back in total shock, unable to process how a random freshman just tanked a physical heavy strike so easily. The room's temperature drops instantly as a terrifying, dark fog starts leaking endlessly from the MC's body. Taking the front line, the giant Phantom Knight spawns in full of rage, warning that anyone dumb enough to point a weapon at his boss is getting wiped off the face of the earth.